We're good?
Yeah, very good.
Hi, good evening, everyone. My name is Miguel Sanchez. I'm calling the Special Committee of Ways and Means to order. It is 5:41. Thank you for your patience. A little bit of technology challenges. Nothing that is new to any of us at this point. Madam Clerk, can we take roll call, please?
Chair Miguel Sanchez,
Present.
Vice Chairman James Taylor,
Here.
Councilor Joe Davidson,
Present.
Councilwoman Althea Graves is absent, Councilwoman Shelley Peterson,
Present.
4 present, 1 absent, you have a quorum.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. I also want to recognize our colleague, Councilman Oscar Vargas has joined us. Thank you for your participation in the budget process. You've been here for quite a few meetings. So we appreciate your service. Also want to recognize our policy staff and our project management / budget staff, Kyle Delgado, and his amazing assistant today. And I also want to recognize our city solicitor's office, our clerk's department, of course, their open administration. At this time, anyone that plans to testify before the committee, you want to stand up and get sworn in, we'll take care of that.
Please raise your right hand. Do you swear under penalty of perjury that the testimony that you are about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? Please state your full name and title for the record.
Leader, Energy Engineer, Traffic Engineer. Ray Nelson, Associate Director of Environmental Services.
Jose Juicy, Director of Licensing.
Trish Coinfig, Director of DPW.
Melanie Druitt, First Administrator, DPW.
Gomez, Fiscal Manager, DPW.
Craig Hoffman, Chief Engineer.
Tim Hamlin, Registrar of Vital Statistics.
Sal Solomon, DPW Highway Superintendent.
Dave Manberg, Superintendent, Sewer Construction, DPW.
Lawrence Mancini, Chief Financial Officer.
Sarah Severia, Finance Director. Crystal Lindberg, Deputy Finance Director and Budget Officer.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Who are we going to start off with today, Crystal?
For you, Chairman, we'd like to start with the Bureau of Licenses.
That works for us.
Wonderful. License Administrator.
Before we start, motion to waive the reading of items 1 through 5.
So moved.
Second.
Motion made by Councilwoman Peterson, second by Vice Chair Taylor. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any nays? Any abstentions? Ayes have it. Thank you. You said license. Do you have a packet?
I do have a packet that holds a distribute that.
At this time, I'll entertain a motion to enter this packet as Exhibit 31 into the record.
So moved.
Motion made by Vice Chair Taylor,
Seconded.
second by Councilwoman Davidson. All those in favor? Aye. Any nays? Any abstentions? The ayes have it. Thank you.
Thank you. The budget book details for this department can be found on page 214 of your budget.
Thank you.
I bookmarked them, so we can just get right to it. I'm joined today with our license administrator, Jose Juicy, and we will start talking about the budget. You guys are ready?
Ready?
The licensing department generates a significant amount of revenue in fiscal year 2027, and total departmental revenues, which have been itemized on this slide, are budgeted at $1,828,000. This represents a $45,000 increase over the fiscal year 2026 budget and has been supported by historical trends. One thing that you'll need to note and adjust for final budget is that the IDPBD municipal ID fees are actually the revenue of the Vital Statistics Department. So when I had divested these departments last year, I had not realized that Vital Statistics was generating that revenue. So for final budget, we'll be moving that revenue allocation out of this budget and into the Vital Statistics budget. Both departments are being heard tonight, so we'll go through their budget in a few moments. Total proposed expenditures in this department are $1,008,212. This represents a $20,335 increase over the fiscal year 2026 budget of $987,877, or just over 2%. There are no proposed changes to FTE counts or salaries in this department. In 2026, we budgeted $493,751. In 2027, we're making adjustments for cost of living increases for $14,813 and step increases for $2,165, bringing total salaries for fiscal year 2027 to $510,729. There is an org chart included in this packet if you'd like to look through how the organizational hierarchy is structured. This budget has been broken into fixed and discretionary costs. The first discretionary line item is fees not classified. This is parking for non-union eligible staff as well as stenographer services for public hearings hearings for the licensing board. Postage has been level funded at $3,550 and is necessary for various forms and mailers that the department needs to send out throughout the fiscal year. Advertising and marketing is their largest line item. A large portion of this does get reimbursed by applicants. So if you look in the revenue, you'll actually see an advertising fees revenue that offsets the cost of these advertisements. They are budgeted $85,000 and are considered a fixed cost because they are required legally for the hearings that we're publishing. Printing, professional development, and legal expenses have all been level funded and are supported by historical trend. When we move on to the supply line items, the bulk of their supplies are considered discretionary. First up is machinery and equipment. This is meter maintenance and calibration for the noise meter machines. There's a small allocation of $1,500 for office supplies, which remains unchanged. Repairs to office equipment is again level funded at $800 for fiscal year 2027. And this department does have a copier and lease that they're under contract for, and there's a fixed cost of $4,000 annually for that. There are no contracts in this department in excess of $50,000.
Thank you.
Of course, that wraps up the financial portion. If there are no questions, I can turn it over to the license administrator.
Thank you. I don't think there's any questions on the petition. Hi, license administrator, how are you?
I'm good, how are you? Here, Santa. Members of the committee, thank you for having me today. I can give a brief overview of the department.
You can do whatever you want.
So obviously, as some of you know, we moved physical locations from City Hall, as you probably heard from my colleagues in economic development. We moved on March 23rd. We had a closing day of March 20th so that we can physically move the office to our new location. Ever since then, it's been going well. Some of the things, we had a ribbon cutting as well, not too long ago. And some of the things that we plan to do that are forecasted is programming, workshops, info sessions for the communities, different communities, doesn't matter which part of the city. We plan to do that and host those events in our new center. We have more than enough space. We have hotel spaces too that are basically basic cubicles. We plan to bring in local community groups in there and to be able to share the space and utilize the space and network and things like that. For licensing, last year we received and processed over 3,000 applications. And then this year, we're probably going to see more because even though some businesses closed, there's still new businesses that open. We just never know what those trends are until people come into the door and we understand what they're there for and what their goals are. Other than that, but the office obviously consists of 2 licensing clerks, 2 licensing inspectors. One is in the process of being filled, so we'll have a 3rd one. It was filled, but things happened. That's why that position was taken again. 2 of those on second shift will be trained and sent to Rutgers University to take the noise training to be able to use decibel readers. And there's a class that's running and one signed up for next month in June. And then the other one, once we finish the onboarding process, we'll send them to. If they can make it to June, we'll send them. Otherwise, the next class is September. But the goal is to send them sooner. Other than that, we prepared for fan zone. We created new applications for that. We're prepared and ready for the influx of visitors that are coming into the city. I created 2 new applications, one for the extended service hours request, which is a pending legislation that's waiting to be signed for at the state level right now. And then once that gets moving, then we'll start fielding and reviewing applications for those that are interested in taking advantage of that extended hour service. Other than that, if anybody has any questions, I'm more than happy to answer them.
Thank you, sir. We appreciate the work that you and your staff does. I know, like you mentioned, it's definitely a very busy time, and we definitely appreciate all the work that is being put in to make not only these tourist experiences the best they can be, but more importantly, the day-to-day operations, interacting and servicing all of our small business owners. We definitely appreciate you. I'm sure there's committee questions. I think everyone's trying to tie notes together, making sure question comes out the way it's meant to be. Counselor Peterson,
I don't know if it's gonna do that, but I'll try.
you try your best.
How are you, Director? Nice to see you. Quick question. I know that we have a first and a second shift inspector.
Yes.
What happens when you get a call about a business after a second shift, like at 2 a.m., 3 a.m.?
Great question. So that is somewhere where we heavily rely on actual sworn police to take those matters into their hands and report back their findings. It's one of the things that I had mentioned before we posted the position was to kind of see if we wanted to do some negotiations with the union on changing the times and if there was any appetite for that. The job description does actually say must be able to work an alternate schedule. I just have to, and the conversation actually came up today, as a matter of fact, where I want to confirm with the union and DPC to see if that's something, if it has to be between 8:30 and 11, or if there's wiggle room to maybe have them come in for 12 on a day to be able to cover that, in case police are tied up, or
Yeah.
let's say they're not working, or whatever the case may be. So that's actually one thing that I'm looking into to see if it's a possibility and not a breach of the
Yeah.
CBA.
And can you tell me a little bit, just for knowledge, when the inspector goes out, if there's a caller, what is it that they're looking for? What is it? How are they kind of conducting their form of business?
So the inspectors on both first shift and second shift, the second shift more tailored towards like, they do check for non-compliances, but some of the other things are, surveillance if we receive a complaint and it's within the time to go out there and investigate and assess the situation. If we receive a complaint that's not the top of our purview or that's on private property, we'll still send the inspector, and whatever they can see and capture from the street, we can collect that information and then forward it to whatever respective department it is. Because we can collaborate across multiple different departments, from fire to police to DPW, the collectors, assessors, so on and so forth. So that's one of the things I always train them to do, just to kind of work collaboratively and collectively in a sense. But they're checking for non-compliances, whether I send them to a location, whether I learn of it on the news, and I look it up and see that there's no license, I'll deploy an inspector for that, to do a compliance check. But I also rely on them to kind of find these things on their own. If I do send them and they see a location that's next door that maybe is questionable or they haven't heard of, to check that too, not just whatever I send them, but whatever's in their travels too. And to follow up on that and kind of like use their memorization skills to try and remember if they see something out of the ordinary to stop and check it and look into it to see if they have the proper licensing for it. And the same thing with complaints that are not, that do fall within our purview.
Yeah.
I also send them out and collect the information and send it back to me so that I can turn around and determine whether I'm gonna, check in with the law department or just simply bring it straight before the board. Since we do have two solicitors, that do kind of rotate, with each other.
Thank you. Just a quick, how many complaints have we received so far this year?
For complaints in general. So like for noise, we don't really, let me see, a lot of it goes, we get a report from 311. But as far as like complaints in general for this year, I didn't bring that with me tonight, but I can certainly get you that information.
I appreciate it.
You're welcome.
You all set, Councilman Peterson?
For now, yeah.
Counselor Davidson, are you all set?
I have a quick follow-up about what Councilwoman Peterson was just asking. Thanks. Nice to meet you. About the noise complaints, just walk me through the process. If there is a complaint and it gets, I assume it would go to the police. How do you get involved in an enforcement capacity? I just want to better understand how it works.
So basically, police are the only ones that can actually write, police
Right.
reports and violate folks. If the inspectors come across something, they would have to contact them to kind of follow up on that. So then what happens is police will write the business or the establishment up. It's usually stuff that falls within us, like if a residence is called for loud music, that's never gonna cross my path.
Of course, yeah.
That's strictly a mistake as a policeman. But it'll get forwarded to me, they'll send it over, usually the solicitors are on the email. And then I take that complaint and then I generate a letter and send them a notice to come in for a pre-hearing conference, which is
Got it.
before it gets to the board level. At that stage, the board's not even aware that the violation exists. They only become aware of it once it moves through the process and it goes before the board for disposition and review. And usually at the pre-hearing conference is when an agreement is reached between either the license holder or if they have an attorney. Usually if it's an entity, a corporation, an LLC, Inc., or something like that, they have to be represented by legal counsel. And usually that kind of delays the process a little bit because counsel maybe is in court or can't make it, or they're part of the General Assembly and they do stuff at the state. So, but at some point, the turnaround is usually as soon as we get it, the week after that, where I'm scheduling it for a pre-hearing conference. I never let it go more than that, unless it's something that they, that they seem to run into an issue. But that's how the process goes for any violation that's received in the city.
Thanks, that's helpful. Thank you, appreciate the overview of the process. If I just have one follow-up question, which just looking at sort of like the budget book mentions that there have been far fewer hearings this year than apparently the past couple. What is that? What is the reason for that?
Like the board of licensing hearings.
Yeah,
So at one point when,
It's metrics.
Gotcha, yeah. So I think part of it is also like the way that the fiscal year falls, because it runs June 30th to July
Yeah.
1st. So we'll definitely reach more than what we have so far between last fiscal year and this year. A little bit more by the end of this fiscal year anyways. But I know in previous years, we were holding 2 hearings a week, but there was a conflict with the chair and his primary job. So they had temporarily reduced the hearings to 1 day. There's been talks recently about bringing another Wednesday hearing. Right now, the Thursday's at 4:30. There's been talks about bringing up that Wednesday hearing again, because 4:30 doesn't work for anyone. The hospitality industry, obviously some of these folks run the restaurants themselves. So my argument is, 5 o'clock is prime time, it's dinner time, it's hard for somebody to come in. My justification is we need another hearing date on a different day of the week at 12:30 or 1 o'clock, where it can kind of fit everyone's schedule. Which obviously you run into issues there too with the attorneys again, if they're being represented, because a lot of times court is early in the week. So we're trying to gauge that on both sides of the spectrum to make sure it works. We have our attorneys that do a lot of licensing work, and then we have some attorneys, very little attorneys that don't really do it. So the ones that do it often and do represent a large portion of the business owners in Providence, that's all within our purview, run into that kind of obstacle. So we gotta kind of work with them, and sometimes Thursdays don't even work for them. That's the reason why there's less hearings.
thank you for clarifying that.
Vice Chair Taylor?
How many food truck licenses do we have roughly in the city?
Roughly, from a recent report that I pulled, there was around 115 permits.
And the inspectors, do they inspect them to make sure they have a license? How does that work? Because I know they gotta be registered with the state and the city.
Right, yeah, so in 2019, that whole process changed, where now they have to go to Department of Business Regulation first to obtain what's called a mobile food registration. And they basically do all the legwork, whether it's a push cart, a pulled, pedaled, whether it's a trailer, whether it's a drivable truck, even just a little Bell's lemonade or a little ice cream cart, they still all require that same MFD registration. So in all 39 cities and towns, in order for them to provide them a permit to vend in their city or town, they need that registration. So that registration, our application takes 10 minutes or less. If you're tech savvy, you can probably get it done in 5 minutes. All you have to do is upload that state MFD registration pay for $75, and your permit expires at the same time. It mirrors the DVR one. So it expires at the same time that your DVR permit or registration expires. But they do all the legwork. They check the Department of Health license, they check the retail sales, they check the registration from DMV, the insurance on whatever vessel it is. And the Department of Health, and if they have the business license, that means the Department of Health already checked temperatures and all that stuff. So the local cities and towns strictly just issue a permit to be able to attend.
Also, have we looked at, I don't think we do, short-term rentals licenses? Because I know the EBR does short-term rentals, but I know other cities and towns have started charging. Newport, I know, does it, Middletown, I believe. They start in Narragansett, they start charging for short-term rentals so the city can actually get any money. Have we looked into doing that? I know we don't, but
Right, yeah.
the roads need money, so.
Yeah, that's true, yeah. And
You get a piece of that pie, I don't know.
yeah, for sure. And that's a really good point. I'm always looking for ways to generate revenue. And I'm always looking for ways to enhance the department and find creative ways where we can legally do that. I've mentioned that before for short-term rentals. You're absolutely right. As you know,
It's growing.
It's growing. It's
growing.
It's something that we could certainly look into, but at this time, it'd be like, I feel like it'd be starting from ground zero. But it's an avenue that we could explore to see, if in conjunction with the law department, to see if it's something that maybe we can do.
Now with the new, I have to pass it officially, but the entertainment license that we're getting, for the different places, they can have, you feel you have enough inspectors for that? If that goes through this year?
Yeah, but between police and the two inspectors on second shift that I'll have, because I think that they'll be dealing with it, and myself included, especially at first, for training purposes and things like that. I think that I'll also be kind of on that, just kind of providing guidance and educating even my own staff on the new changes, because it's going to be new to them. At this time, I don't know how to confidently say that if I have enough inspectors or not. In my opinion, I think it's definitely going to be an add-on. So there might be a slight chance that we need them, but I won't know until we actually start fielding applications for it. But I think it's going to be a little bit more that's asked of us, and that's okay. I just want to make sure that we have the people power in order to be able to execute in a timely fashion, due to some budget constraints in the recent past. But in my opinion, I'm hoping that with the two that I have in police, that's enough. But I'll be more better positioned to answer that once we actually.
That's good, yeah, that's okay. Yeah, that's it.
Councilor Peterson?
Thank you. Do you have any mechanism in your systems to inform counselors of any licensing issues in the wards? Is there a notification that goes out? We don't have a whole lot of brick and mortar in Ward 14, so it's more of a curiosity question for me, but
Yeah.
nothing open very late at night either, so
Okay. Yeah.
that I know
And
of.
Yeah. And I know ladder 133 was in.
Not my ward.
Not your ward, okay, all right, so maybe Google Maps is wrong. But they're one that it was a transfer that fell through and it just never went in. But right now, there's no mechanism in place to inform. There is a mechanism in place where the chief clerk sends any new businesses that are opening up, and it usually goes to the chief of staff on city council then. And those are new licenses or transfers that are happening in the city, and it does show the address.
Yeah.
So that mechanism is in place where we do send that every time we send a list. Not only do we send it to city council, we also send it to the division of taxation too, because obviously they require certificate of standings and stuff like that. But it's not something that I feel is out of reach. I feel like that's something that I could probably look into and do. I actually have I have a ward map in my office, specifically for that reason, and I'd love to utilize it more than just looking at it. So I can definitely explore those options.
I appreciate that. Sometimes it's helpful to know ahead of time or even while news is coming out about something that might have happened in the neighborhood, and when it comes to licensing, we don't always get a chance to know about that stuff, so.
And it's tough sometimes because like surrenders for liquor licenses, like sometimes we don't get those back. But then we get a new person that's applying and has a lease. So obviously that tells us that the other person's out. If without a lease, you don't have a license, technically, by law. So I have a list that's actually coming your way pretty soon of surrenders, just throughout the city, of ones that we were able to capture from folks. I try to like tell my staff to really, stick it to them and let them know we just need the form, because asking them before the board as a not a withdrawal, but like a surrender.
Yeah.
So I do have a list that's actually coming your way as promised.
Good to know.
And I know I apologize for the
No, that's okay.
for
Don't
the
even worry.
tardiness there, but it's been
You guys got a lot you're doing.
just a little, yeah. But that is coming your way, and that's going to show you all the surrenders that have taken place. So people that didn't renew or surrender late this year.
Perfect.
We still have 16 incomplete liquor license renewals in the city that expired December 1st. Those are on before the board tomorrow. And so we still have some folks. And liquor renewal season is upon us, but it starts in August. So it's like we're cleaning this up just to start it all over again, and everything else in between.
I'm sorry, one more question. How many liquor licenses do we have total?
So right now in Providence, we're at 483 liquor licenses and counting. So that number is subject to change as licenses are ready to be issued. But from my most recent report, it was 483, and 50 of those are liquor stores. So they're just package stores.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Council Vargas?
Thank you. Thank you very much for your presentation. I got a question like, is any law in the city that we can protect, like, for example, Onivel, I got 20 licenses, 20 liquor licenses. Even the church is getting a license now in the area, like how we can,
Are you for real? Or is that a joke?
no, even the church can get a license.
I didn't know if you were being serious.
No, because they very close to each other, like, is any way to control that, like, because there's so many liquor licenses in one spot only?
I'm sure there's a way, and I'm sure that there's something in the law that would allow that. The only negative effect that would have is the impact on economic growth. You restricted that, but I understand your point. And the rule still applies if there's a church or a school within 200 feet, they gotta get an exemption. And to your point, yeah, there is one-day licenses that the office is, that the office does issue, like a class F one day, for full or limited, which simply means beer or wine or full spirits. So sometimes the churches do apply, for those one-day licenses. But there is, like, geographical areas that, I know for liquor stores for sure there is. I just don't know for certain from a legal standpoint if there is one to limit the amount of liquor licenses in a certain area. That's a good question that I couldn't think of.
Thank you. Do we also, your department is also in charge of the little shops licenses too?
What type of licenses?
Like auto mechanic shops?
Yes.
All those are
Yes.
under you?
Yes, so motor vehicle repair falls under us, and those require a license, and we also required to be advertised in the Providence Journal and an annual renewal. And that fee it went up for that license last year. And we look at everything. When we go there and it's an inspector, we look, are they parked on the sidewalk? Are they fixing cars on the street? Are they spilling and creating an environmental hazard? Are they closing on time and not staying there drinking and smoking and treating it like a nightclub operation after hours? We look at all that stuff and we bring them in. And sometimes it's more than one that we bring in before the board to address those types of concerns. Not to mention that they're treating it like a junk shop, with parts everywhere. That's a zoning violation. So we would bring them in before the board there as well. And obviously speak with zoning first to see if they identify any violation before we take action. But I think with my experience, I think I already can identify them without looking at the ordinance. So I know, just from looking at photos, if something's in violation or not and what action I can take.
Thank you.
And that's just one of 28 plus different licensing categories that fall within our purview that we regulate and license.
Because I only see, only four people in the unit,
On the organizational chart,
on your department. You got a vacant position and you got four people.
oh, yes, so licensing clerks, I have 2, and then for licensing inspectors, I have 2 right now, and in the process of filling another one. So the first one obviously just works first shift, that's by contract.
For the whole city?
For the whole city, yes. Yeah, and then the other 2 inspectors on second shift. So, yeah, it's not New York, but it's still a big city to provide coverage on. And that's why I'm kind of like in a little bit of a urgency to fill that other position because the season's picking up and I want to get them trained, not just on the specifics of the job, but special events and things like that.
How long has it been vacant?
So this position's been vacant since April of this year. And the reason for that, while I'm not at liberty to discuss personnel matters in depth, they just didn't make it past their 60 days. And the position was filled before that. And some things happened also that I'm not at liberty to discuss where, they didn't make their 60-day mark either. And that was just in December. So I've had to repost the position. That takes some time. And so that's why I'm in the interviewing process right now. And I've already made a selection. I just got to send a recommendation to.
This person will make it through the 60-day process.
Yes, I have faith.
Well, I'll be pulling for them.
I have faith that they will, yes.
All right, back to Councilman Burgess.
Do you think that you will need another daytime inspector?
I mean, I wouldn't say no. I wouldn't say no. I wouldn't be opposed to the idea if I can allocate some funds for it.
Because according to the information that I see that your department do a lot of licensing, special businesses. Plus, wherever they fall into it, you have to go review and go through that. I have an idea that you might need another inspector for daytime. Think about it. This is the time.
Yeah. Yeah.
Doesn't seem like he needs to think about it.
Well, I would love to. I would love to. I just, with the budget constraints, I don't know that would be feasible this year.
Thank you.
Are you all set?
Thank
Councilman
you,
Burgess?
Chair.
You all set? I just have a few questions. Does anyone else have anything? No. First question is, Administrator, you mentioned the initiative about short-term rentals regarding the World Cup. It seems like that's a new initiative that the administration is pushing out. But when Vice Chair Taylor mentioned short-term rental licensing, you said that's not a policy or an idea. So I guess what's the difference between what you're saying and what Vice Chair Taylor asked about?
I was asking if we licensed it to the city, and he said no.
And
We don't.
and just to clarify, you mean like Airbnb?
Airbnb, yeah. We don't do it, that's why I said, like Narragansett,
Yeah.
Newport, they've already started doing it. They get a certain percentage, the state also gives a certain percentage.
Yeah.
But as of now, I was asking if we thought about it in the future, too late for FIFA, but I'm saying that down the road, it's quite a,
Yeah, it might be wise to look into.
because they're growing and growing and growing.
Right, yeah, they are, and they do exist in Providence. I just don't think I'd have to look.
I guess, so my question is, so what's the short-term rental licensing that was recently launched?
In licensing,
Yeah.
short-term rental.
When you did your overview, you talked about some new licenses that you're working on that are terminated for World Cup. I don't know if that was related to.
Oh, I'm sorry, I can provide clarity on those. So it was for the fan zone specifically. There was a vendor market license that was created to capture those interested in vending in that area. And then the other one was the temporary extended hours request, which is the legislation that hasn't been signed yet. And those we created an application for.
Right.
I created an application for that, so that way when that legislation passes, we can capture those that are interested. We can capture those that are interested in taking advantage of the 3 a.m. stop service of alcohol and the 4 a.m. closure. And those will be looked at and considered carefully and reviewed depending on, what violations they have. If they're on a reduction of hours, already serving a penalty. Blackout dates that the city might have due to resource capacity and or limitations. And also, the other thing was for the temporary extended hours is whether or not some games start late, and if we're going to entertain those or all 39 days. Because the legislation talks about it being up to the local licensing authority, and they have to file an application 14 days in advance, but there's no fee associated with that. But we want to at least capture it in case a year from now, or after fee, but somebody asks, hey, how many places, can you pull a report? I'm able to do that rather than guessing. So we're going that, and that's what I was referring to as far as creating the 2 applications. But for the short-term rentals, that's like a new conversation.
Yeah. So just so you're aware, Administrator, and I think this is where some of the confusion is. So the mayor's office has put out short-term rental permitting process specific to people, I believe, but I think that's being housed under inspection standards. So I think some type of overlap conversation, maybe with some counselors to explore that possibility going forward. For the record, my position is that short-term rentals should be prohibited in a city like Providence that's facing such housing prices shortage. This is a policy we see enacted in a lot of other places. I'm just voicing my opinion here for the record. But I mean, if they're here, I think definitely seeing some type of revenue coming in, I think would be the next possible best policy, is my personal opinion. But moving forward, Administrator, how has the move been to 444 Westminster? Are you seeing more people come in? What's the feedback been so far?
I think it's been good. I think it's been positive. We're a public-facing department as it is, so we get foot traffic anyways. But we've been getting folks, especially after the ribbon cutting, we've been getting folks coming in looking for information for a different variety of different topics. Some that are strictly economic development questions, some that are both, that we can tag team together and sit at a round table and discuss different things. And we've already done that several times. And as I mentioned before, that's not where it ends. Like, we plan to kind of put ourselves out there, create the workshops, create the info sessions, and things like that, especially like the entertainment, once wherever we land with that. I think, in my opinion, that maybe we should teach the businesses who are not zoned for entertainment currently of what this means for them, and what it doesn't mean for the folks who are zoned. Nothing really changes for them. So I think that that's forthcoming too for the new business center. I think that there's plenty of opportunity and different ways that we can engage with the community and make it a positive thing, and really make it a one-stop shop as much as we can. Obviously, there's some regulatory requirements from the Department of Health, as I mentioned, from like food trucks and stuff like that, or brick and mortars as well. But so far, I can honestly say that I've seen foot traffic for people asking, generic questions of all different kinds.
Thank you. Last question I have, sir, is outside of the decibel training that you mentioned, is there any other training that new hires, or I guess what's the requirements or eligibility to become an inspector?
So to become an inspector with this department, all you need is a high school diploma. A lot of the training is on-the-job training, except for the noise training. That's something that they have to be sent out of state for. Right now, it's at Rutgers University in New Jersey, New Brunswick. That's a training that we can't do because it's done by professionals. uniforms, and there's a cost associated with that. But other than that, there's, we work on different training offerings with the union, whether it be training on Microsoft Office, I always tell my folks to think of trainings that would help them be better at their job. We have a line item for professional development, so I want to try and utilize that more for them. And, obviously I have to do it within limits, because there's only so much allocated for that. But I would love to see them, take more trainings that would make them better at their job. Even if it's down to like a communications class, if somebody's afraid of oral speaking or speaking in public or speaking before the board if they have to testify on a matter. But right now it's very, very limited. It's calls for experience, understanding and knowledge of local and state laws. Obviously a high school diploma, the training is a requirement and a condition of their employment as an inspector. But a lot of it is done on the job, learning the software, learning, the different databases that we use to enter information. There's a lot of data entry, there's a lot of preparation work that goes into advertised hearings, a lot of communication with Providence Journal. But as far as that, it's very clerical, hands-on training.
Are you responsible for most of the on-the-job training, or?
Yes, for the most part, the majority of it I am. Obviously, if since I lost a deputy, sometimes I rely on my chief clerk to kind of help and assist and train when I'm not available. But for the most part, it is my duty to train them. And as some of you may know, I was the inspector, so I'm not saying that I'm the right guy for the job, but I think I know a thing or two about how to be an efficient, effective inspector, as I was in 2021. So I think that I can help there in many different areas. I take them out, sometimes I run the show, and I show them how an inspection should go, and then I tell them to just kind of tailor it to what they feel is right. But I've always told them that it's all about how you talk to people, and that's gonna get you the furthest. If you come in hot, you're gonna get them hot, and they're gonna be upset, and it's not gonna go well. But if you go in with a calm, level-headed demeanor, you're gonna get further. You're gonna get people to actually respond, and people remember those things. And I always tell them that I speak from experience to that regard.
Thank you. Any other questions, committee? Nope. Thank you so much, Administrator. We appreciate you and your department.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Okay, ready? Come on up.
Motion to enter Exhibit 32 into the record.
So
Motion made by Vice Chair Taylor, seconded by Councilor Davidson. All those in favor? Aye. Any nays? Any abstentions? The ayes have it. 32.
The budget book details on page 259 of your budget book, if you're not there already. I'm joined today by City Registrar Tim Hamlin, and we will begin the financial presentation. As mentioned previously, the Vital Statistics Department does generate revenue. The primary source of revenue is certified records. As you can see on this slide, they generate quite a few certified copies of vital health records. As well, they also process marriage licenses. There are some miscellaneous fees, and they do collect and process PVD IDs in this department. Total expenditures in fiscal year 2027 proposed at $520,466. This is a $78,337 increase over the fiscal year 2026 budget of $442,129, or 17.72% increase. Total proposed salaries are budgeted at $298,949. This represents a $14,000 increase over the fiscal year 2026 budget of $285,485. There are no proposed changes to FTEs or salaries in this department, and all of the increases are attributable to cost of living increases or step increases for eligible employees. This department does have a small service and supply line item budget. It has been broken into fixed and discretionary costs. All of the budget line items have been level funded from fiscal year 26 to 2027. In the discretionary services, we have postage, which is necessary for the department and the mailings that they need to send out, as well as business subscriptions. This $150 is allocated for the Rhode Island Town and City Clerks Association membership. Additionally, there's a small allocation of $1,500 for stationery. This is necessary for office supplies and any branded materials the department may need. Repairs to office equipment is bookbinding. There are some very ancient and specialty books that need a specialty binding done regularly to maintain them. And so we do have a modest allocation of $2,500 for that service. And then there is a fixed cost of $3,000. This is the copier and lease maintenance for the department and is under contract with Rico. There are no contracts over $50,000 in this department. And with that, if there are no budgetary questions, I'll take it over to.
Just a quick question, Crystal. What's up with the increase in benefits?
I am going to take a deep look at that. Carlene and I worked on an updated allocation based on current FTE counts, and so I just want to double check and look at what happened there. I think that there might have been something double counted, so total benefits will not change, but the way we allocate them across departments probably will for final budget.
All right, good. Once you get the most updated, can you?
Yeah, so when we do the final ordinances, you'll see the red line of how the benefit numbers have changed. There's a couple that look a little high and a couple that look a little low, so we just want to smooth that out for next fiscal year. But as a reminder, the bulk of our benefits are medical and pension, which are an actuarially determined number. So it's a matter of how that number is allocated across departments, not that the number is not in that budget.
Right.
Or budget.
Thank you.
Yeah, of course.
Registrar, good evening. They keep adding new titles. I gotta say, it's administrator. We had a collector yesterday, controller. I just want to call everyone chief or director, but we'll respect you, sir. Thank you for all the work that you do. Anything you want to share with the committee or the hundreds of people listening at home?
Yeah, I'd like to explain what we do over there. We're responsible for maintaining, preserving a lot of the essential records for the city of Providence. When people come in, they're going through some of the most important times of their life. You know, it could be a death of a loved one, birth of a child, a marriage. So we make sure that we take special care of them. And, you know, the process that we've been going through since I've taken over is we're modernizing and kind of streamlining the experience so we can get them in and out of there and kind of, make them feel like they got good service and expedite. And we, as far as going through with 311 and vitals, it's kind of, it fits perfect because it is a constituent service. So through our customer service training, it falls over to the clerks in the office. Yeah, that's about the sum of it.
Fair enough. And you're located, you're still here in City Hall, right?
Yes, 104.
I certainly don't have any questions. Does anyone from the committee? Councilor Davidson?
Yeah, hi. I just a clarifying question. Why do we not garner any revenue from birth or death?
Oh, we do, we generate.
Oh, maybe I'm misreading the revenue.
So certified copies are they're copies of those certificates. The only licenses that are issued for this.
Thank you for clarifying that. I understand now. Okay.
Do you have, we don't have to correct it right now, but do you have a breakdown of how many type of copies are distributed on an annual basis?
I can get that for you for sure. You want a breakdown of like birth, marriage?
Yeah, okay. Any other questions? Harlan, do you have any questions?
No, sir.
See you later.
I think we're all set. Thank you, sir.
All right, thank you. Appreciate your time.
That was easy.
So I just applied for the city health insurance. Oh, yeah. I literally like have my kids' Providence birth certificate like in my bag right there. I was like, I remember paying, you know.
Yep, that's it.
I also was, should you tell me, I found my marriage license.
Can I tell you, so my marriage license is in Spanish because I got married in Peru. Lord Jesus is the thing. We realized that we had never applied for like 10 years ago.
Did you have to have a ceremony? Like,
I have not done it yet.
Good job.
We're 17 years in, and I was like, let's wait for 20.
Did you have it, if you have you had to produce your marriage license?
I did for Social Security, but I had to change my last name. And so they accepted my international copy with a translation.
Okay.
I was very nervous that they wouldn't.
Okay.
It was one of those things that it.
Yeah. I have a different last name than my dad, so if I add him to my health insurance, I have to prove individuality.
Yeah.
Motion to enter exhibit 33 into the record.
So moved.
Motion made by Counselor
Second.
Pearson, second by Vice Chair Taylor. All those in favor? Aye. Any nays? Any abstentions? Ayes have it.
Madam Director. Good timing, good work.
Are we gonna go through the whole presentation first, Crystal?
If you're comfortable with that, I think that makes the most sense. We can ask the financial questions on the
Yeah,
packet as we go through.
as long as you don't mind questions.
Not at all.
So committee members, if there's any questions on the budget presentation aspect of it, please raise your hand.
Okay.
It's a lot.
I can read it fast, so if you need to slow down, I'm happy to do that. We've got a lot to get through, so it's a very important part.
We got a lot of time.
We do, I know, I
A lot of
was
time.
thinking that, yeah, still early. I am joined today with Fire Director Patricia Fuente Esquire. You will be pleased to be able to refer to her as a director, so we don't have to worry about any more title changes for this meeting. And they will begin the presentation. The first division is the engineering division. Their budget book details are on page 307 of your budget book. This division, while it does generate some revenue from permit fees, those revenues are actually recorded in the highway division. Total proposed expenditures for the engineering division in fiscal year 2027 are $1,868,499. This represents a $402,376 increase over the fiscal year 2026 budget of $1,466,123, or approximately 27.4%. There are some changes to FTEs in this budget. In fiscal year 2026, we had budgeted $926,800. In fiscal 2027, we're making adjustments to the following items. Cost of living increases for $32,438. Step increases for $8,109. We are funding in accordance with the new utility ordinance, a new associate engineer 4, an annual salary of $75,540, as well as a new engineering project manager, a salary of $79,202. For total proposed fiscal year 2027 salaries of $1,122,089. I think it's also important to note that while these are not funded because they are non-union based performance increases, the salaries for the chief engineer, deputy chief engineer, assistant chief engineer, and engineering project manager were expanded to allow for a greater range in those salaries. The previous cap for the chief engineer was an A26, it is now an A30. The deputy chief engineer from a cap of A24 to a cap of A26. The assistant chief engineer went from a cap of A21 to a cap of A24. And the engineering project manager went from a cap of an A19 to an A21. And those salaries were all consulted in conjunction with reviewing state level salaries in comparable cities compared to where we're at with our current staff salaries.
So while it's not funded, I guess what's the mechanism in place for like a mid-year raise?
So assuming that staff receive an adequate performance evaluation, the director would recommend a salary increase. The finance department would then review that in coordination with all of the planned salary increases.
As we mentioned previously, the process for non-union steps in fiscal 27 has changed. So instead of budgeting them at the position level, we have put an allocation in attrition for all non-union steps. And so my homework this year will be managing that allocation throughout the year to ensure that it's equitably distributed throughout departments so that we're not in a place where everybody getting a review in July is getting a raise and everyone getting a review in June is not. At this point in time, the mechanism of how we're going to do that is still in works with the Department of People and Culture, but all raises will be done in conjunction with performance evaluations and will be in accordance with the approved salaries in the ordinance.
Just a quick follow-up. Do all employee reviews happen in the months of June and July, or?
No, those are just examples so that, someone who was at the end of the year didn't end up missing out because the funds had all been expended. Performance evaluations should be happening on an annual basis based on the date the employee entered into that role. So if you started in April of 2026, you would get a performance evaluation in April of 2027. Their budget has been broken into fixed and discretionary line items. The first considered fixed cost is private contractors. This is emergency design and engineering services for non-CIP projects. Under the supply line items, the bulk of their items are considered discretionary. First is miscellaneous expenses. This is engineering, state fees, registrations, and survey equipment. There was a small increase to small tools and shop supplies, which we're seeing citywide of $3,800, bringing that total budget to $4,800 in fiscal year 2027. Maintenance and serving are engineering tools and equipment that currently need, and we have a modest budget of $5,000. Copier and lease maintenance is the copier that is under contract for this department, and is budgeted at $8,000 in fiscal year 2027, which is unchanged from fiscal year 2026. The last line item that's considered discretionary is hurricane barrier maintenance. There's been some considerable upgrades in the hurricane barrier, and we would like to add an additional $15,000 to continue to maintain that out of our operating budget so we can stay in well with our working repair condition. There are no contracts in this division above $50,000. The next division is environmental control. Their budget begins on page 310 of your budget book. This department does generate some revenue. They are generating the sale of replacement trash and recycling carts. We did decrease this budget by about $51,000 in fiscal year 2027 due to the rollout of the new carts. We felt that they would not be purchasing as many replacement parts since all our states had new carts. We will be reevaluating that revenue next fiscal year, depending on where part replacements are and trend in fiscal year 2027. Total proposed expenditures in fiscal 2027 are $17,994,976. This is a $406,183 decrease from the fiscal year 2026 budget of $18,401,159, or a reduction of about 2%. Fiscal year 2026 salaries were budgeted at $728,253. In fiscal year 2027, we're proposing the following adjustments. Cost of living increases costing $25,489. Step increases costing $6,372. Additionally, there's a request to move the environmental court liaison position out of the DPW administration budget and into the environmental budget to more accurately reflect the reporting hierarchy of that position. That is no cost, and we will see a reduction in the division it is coming from for that change. The budget in the environmental division has been broken into fixed and discretionary line items. The bulk of their line items are considered fixed and are tied to refuse processing and trash pickup. The first line item is considered other services. This is $75,000 for port tows. We are seeing an increase in the cost of that, and so we are needing to fund a little bit more money to provide necessary towing and remediation of those tows.
Quick question, Crystal?
Yeah.
Is that tied to a contract or?
It's tied to both the contract and historical spend. In fiscal year 2025, we spent $100,000. Those port tows do go out to bid and are under contract, I believe.
Yeah, I see on the next page.
Street towing, yeah, it's on the next page.
Thank you.
Yep, of course. The next discretionary line item is pest control, which we all think is pretty important. We are seeing an increase in that cost of $5,000 for next fiscal year, and requested to increase that line item. Program expense has been reduced by $50,000, and this is based on historical spend. This is commercial corridor cleanup program, which is something the director can talk in more detail about if there are questions about. Additionally, we do have a substantial decrease in recycling pickup due to the new waste management contract, which has been offset by the increase in the garbage pickup fees. The two of those net about a $50,000 increase in garbage pickup costs throughout fiscal year 2027.
I'm sorry, Crystal, can you repeat that?
Yep. So the new contract terms have the cost of recycling pickup going down, but the cost of garbage pickup going up. So the net cost of those, if you see the negative 957,
Yeah.
and positive 135, that's $80,000 if I'm doing this math correctly.
Okay.
Waste recycling education is pretty self-explanatory and has been level funded at $50,000. Private contractors is funding for replacement carts against, and collection agency on environmental tickets. Again, because we are rolling out the new carts, we felt we would not utilize any replacement carts in fiscal year 2027, and so it felt like a safe reduction in that line item. The last fixed cost is refuse processing. These are Rhode Island Resource recovery fees for processing refuse. We are seeing a substantial reduction of $500,000 in that, which is supported by our trend. We are hoping that that number comes in even greater as we see better recycling rates in the city, but we felt the $500,000 reduction was a safe number to budget for fiscal year 2027.
Crystal, we
Based
can,
on what we're seeing.
we can get into this probably more with the director, but I guess like what exact numbers are we seeing to support that trend?
So right now, when we look at our year-to-date expenditures for refuse processing, it is at $2.7 million on a $5.2 million budget. So when we look at the rolling 12, which is what I do when we analyze our budget regularly, we look at the last 12 consecutive months in a row, and we budgeted what that actual number was. And so that is where the 475 came from.
Follow-up question, Councilor Davidson?
It's actually a slightly different question, but I don't want to lose track of it. Why are recycling fines not showing up on revenue for this department?
The environmental tickets show up in the non-departmental budget,
Okay,
with the rest of the fines and forfeitures. That's where all the municipal court revenues are also booked.
okay, thank you for clarifying that.
Yeah, no problem. The last line item is a supply line item. It is small tools and shop supplies, which are tools and equipment for this division.
One quick question,
Yeah.
with regards to the environmental court liaison, how many tickets and fines have we seen, or how much revenue has been generated from that in the last year?
So environmental environmental. So in fiscal year 2025, we collected $153,782. Year-to-date revenues as of this budget book being printed, so as of April, were $91,611.
And Director, are you still having the same issue where there isn't really too much push after, I mean, if they get the ticket and they don't pay it, there isn't anything really?
Correct.
Do you know by any chance, off the top of your head, how much outstanding that leaves?
I don't, but I can find out.
Thank you.
This department has several contracts above $50,000. They've been itemized on slide 11. The first is with Series Street Towing for the towing of abandoned vehicles. That contract's at $77,000 currently. Rewrite Pacific is replacement tracks and recycling carts. The current contract for fiscal year 2027 has us authorized to spend $149,942, although we do not anticipate spending that quantity of money in fiscal year 2027. Rhode Island Resource Recovery is budgeted at $4,750,000. And then we have the waste management contract for recycling pickup and garbage. Recycling pickup is $4,203,960, and risk garbage is budgeted at $7,208,311.
The tipping line, the 4,750 is up to now?
The $4,750,000.
Yeah, the 4 million, sorry, yeah.
So the $4,750,000 is what we have budgeted, because that's tied to, like load size and volume and all of that. We don't have like a contract for a fixed amount for Rhode Island Resource Recovery, but we do list the amount that's budgeted here. So we have something to tie back to.
Do you have any follow-ups, or that's what we're budgeting to spend for the next fiscal year, and fees for bad recycling?
Well, and there is a fee, there is a large portion of that is actually the cost of processing the garbage. So there is, not all 4.7 million is the fee for bad recycling. Theoretically, we would pay less than 4.7 million if we had better recycling rates, but not all of that 4.7 is tied to recycling.
Have our,
Follow up?
yeah, have our recycling rates improved at all? I know that we were at 4% last year, roughly.
I would defer that to the director and maybe environmental, if they have that information.
I would say yes.
Okay.
And it's something that I was gonna, excuse me, brag about when.
Oh, okay. Sorry, I jumped the gun. I apologize.
I'm happy to brag now. Through the, this is Brandon Olson, who's our new Associate Director for Environmental Services, has come in hot, and has already made a really good impression, and a really good change, even just to the culture of that division. The work of that division has changed a little bit, which I can talk about some more later if you want. But in partnership with Zero Waste Providence, and also in a really good team effort with sustainability, Brandon and his team have worked on doing a better job of inspecting people's recycle bins. In the wee hours of the morning, different wards. And it's resulted in some routes being sent to the MRF, to the municipal recycling sorting facility, and passing the MRF. Routes that had traditionally not passed the MRF. And so we are seeing that rate go up.
That's good news.
And we're we're sort of cautiously optimistic that that's a trend that we want to sustain.
Good job. Thank you.
Excellent. The next division is the highway division, which I think this has come up in previous times. I want to say maybe public property. When we were reviewing our budget, there was questions on how we manage auto repairs and maintenance. This is how DPW does that. So this is the division where all of the vehicle and equipment repairs and maintenance are budgeted and finished. Total proposed expenditures in this division are $1,253,306. This represents an $11,923 decrease from the fiscal year 2026 budget of $1,265,229. To your point earlier, Chairman, that decrease is attributable to the change in benefit allocation. And when I look at what we are budgeting in fiscal year 2027 for total benefits of $385,000, which is very close to the actuals in fiscal year 2026 of $363,000. So this reduction is just us right-sizing the benefits to what the actual expenses have been in historical years. Fiscal year 2026 salaries were budgeted at $527,286. This division is proposing no changes to FTEs or salaries. As a result, we are only adjusting for cost of living increases of $18,455 and step increases of $7,098. The total proposed fiscal year 2027 salaries are $552,839. This budget has been broken into fixed and discretionary line items. The vast majority of their line items are considered, well, all of them are considered discretionary, and are in total level funded from year to year. $4,000 has been removed from auto parts and repairs to auto equipment based on known DMV registrations. There's been quite a few vehicles purchased and been asked to lease for this department, and so we need to make sure that we're appropriately registering them. As a result, we need a little bit fewer auto parts, and so we felt that was a good way to balance out the budget for fiscal year 2027. Their budget, their contracts are not necessarily $50,000, but when added to other divisions, they make up $50,000. So we thought out of the abundance of caution, we would list them here. They are for heavy truck parts and auto services and have gone out to bid and have been officially the next division
So,
is.
so just to confirm, so we have some contracts that different departments, I guess, have access to or benefits.
Certainly, so we have some blanket contracts for sure, right? And that's gonna be many city departments participating in one contract. In these contracts specifically, they are contracts specific to the Department of Public Works, but multiple divisions are utilizing them. So when we added up Truck Pro for all of the DPW divisions in total, it was more than $50,000.
But is it one contract or is it?
It's one contract with multiple accounting, like funding sources underneath that contract.
Thank you,
So we are into the highway division. They are on page 316 of your budget book. As I mentioned previously, the engineering permit revenues are recorded in this division. They are budgeted in fiscal year 2027 at $598,000, which is about a $200,000 increase over the fiscal year 2026 budget of $387,000. The bulk of this increase, or all of this increase, is in the permits revenue line and supported by our historical trend. We are seeing an uptick in the number of permits happening in this division. Total proposed expenditures are $6 million in fiscal year 2027, or $6,535,401. This is a $403,735 increase over the fiscal year 2026 budget of $6,131,666, or approximately 6.58%. In 2026, salaries in the highway division were budgeted at $2,902,105. We are adjusting salaries in 2027 for cost of living increases at $130,595, step increases at $39,178. Additionally, an MOA was executed in April of 2026, which is resulting in an additional $109,055 in salary costs, bringing proposed salaries in fiscal year 2027 to $3,180,933.
Crystal, is this MOA the same one as?
It is, yes.
Exact same, that's
It
all
is the
under?
exact same one. There were multiple divisions listed on that. One of the titles changed in that MOA was the heavy equipment operator position, which has been a position we've had a hard time actually maintaining a full staff in. But that's why we're seeing such a jump in here. There are many heavy equipment operators. Many of the positions that were adjusted are in this division.
Thank you.
This budget has been broken into fixed and discretionary costs. The first fixed cost is under contract at street sweeping, and it's required by ordinance. And that is budgeted at $500,000 and unchanged from fiscal year 2026 to 2027. Total supplies again are unchanged from 2026 to 2027. There's $125,000 allocated for asphaltic products. This is hot and cold patch materials. Miscellaneous expenses covers any temporary speed bumps and road plates needed in the department, and those are budgeted at $5,000. Small tool shop supplies are pretty self-explanatory and are level funded at $20,000. Cement and plaster products represents ready-mix sidewalk materials and are funded at $25,000 in fiscal year 2027. Housekeeping supplies are cleaning supplies and trash bag liners. Those are budgeted at $25,000 and remain unchanged. Lumber and hardware are necessary, lumber and hardware supplies the department may need. There's a small allocation of $1,500 and remains unchanged in fiscal year 2026. The last item is uniforms and wearing apparel. These are safety materials and the uniform service that's necessary, and that is budgeted at $90,000 and unchanged from fiscal year 2026. This department also has a capital budget. There's a $50,000 allocation for structures and improvement. These are non-capital CIP urgent repairs that may come up in the fiscal year, and that budget is unchanged from fiscal 2026 to fiscal 2027. All contracts above $50,000 have been itemized on slide 23. The first is with Navarro for cement at $50,000. H.J. Lynch provides asphalt at $60,000. Able has won the street sweeping contract, and they are estimated to earn $500,000 as a result of that. Cintas does uniform rental and cleaning. That's a $90,000 budget line item. And Narragansett Improvement also provides asphalt at $60,000 annually.
Is uniform mostly for mechanics, or who else uses the, everyone?
Except for like the non-union.
Any other questions there?
Yes.
Oh.
Sorry.
Counselor Peterson?
Is there, just out of curiosity, is there a reason why we use two different asphalt companies?
So sometimes they're not open,
Oh.
they're open at different times. So
Okay.
we have a list and we always choose a couple.
Thank you for that.
reason.
Excellent. The next division is the Parking Administration Division. Their budget can be found on page 320. This is a revenue generating department. Revenues in fiscal year 2027 are budgeted $3,650,000. This is a $250,000 increase, $200,000 increase over the fiscal year 2026 budget. All of that increase is in the parking permits revenue line and is supported by the historical revenue receipts we've received in that line. Total proposed expenditures are $739,173. This is a change of a reduction of $86,593 from the fiscal year 2026 budget of $825,766, or approximately 10.5% less. There are no changes, or there are no changes, proposed changes to FTE counts or salaries in this division. In fiscal 2026, we have budgeted $247,521. In fiscal 2027, we are making adjustments for cost of living increases at approximately $9,901, step increases for $1,070, to bring total proposed fiscal year 2027 salaries to $258,492. This budget has been broken into fixed and discretionary line costs. The first fixed cost is private contractor. This is Brink's coin collection, which is necessary for all of our meters, as well as IPS service fees. There is a reduction of $100,000 from the fiscal year 2026 budget. This $100,000 was one-time funding provided to the department to provide additional parking signage, and so we're anticipating all of that signage will be purchased in fiscal 2026 and will no longer be in the budget for 2027. There's also a small supply line item budget of $55,000. $5,000 is machinery and equipment. This is pole replacements for meters throughout the city, as well as $50,000 for parking permit tags, receipt paper, and coin bags. There is one contract above $50,000. This is with IPS for parking meter fees and service. This contract is for $366,000. That $366,000 does include a portion of the fees that are passed through to customers when they pay their meters. And next up, we have the Public Works Administration Division. That begins on page 323. So proposed budget for fiscal year 2027 are $1,314,223. This is a $1,829 increase of the fiscal year 2026 budget of $1,312,394, or approximately 0.14% change. Fiscal 2026 salaries are budgeted at $805,153. In fiscal 2027, we're making adjustments for cost of living increases for $25,107, step increases for $563. Additionally, the environmental court liaison mentioned previously is being reduced from this budget and added to the environmental budget. That is a reduction of $63,420. For total proposed fiscal year 2027 salaries of $767,404. Their budget has been broken into fixed and discretionary line items. The first discretionary line item is postage, which is self-explanatory. The next is dues and subscriptions. This is CDL testing reimbursements for staff, as well as membership dues for DPW staff. There is a modest allocation of $7,700 for office supplies for all divisions, as well as $2,000 for stationery, which remain unchanged. There's a budget of $1,998 for miscellaneous expenses, which represent state licenses and fees. Maintenance and service is building security, and that we are seeing a decrease of $2,000 based on historical spending and trend. And the last fixed cost is the copier and lease maintenance, which is under contract and budgeted at $7,000. There are no contracts above $50,000 in this division specifically. The next division is the sewer division. They are on page 326 of your budget book. There is a small amount of revenue in this budget. It is generated from engineering-related sewer fees. We are budgeted at $25,000 in fiscal year 2027, which is supported by the fiscal year 2025 revenue of approximately $20,000. Fiscal year 2027 proposed budget is $1,734,095. This represents $110,203 increase over the fiscal year 2026 budget of $1,623,892, or approximately 6.8%. This is another division that is being affected by the MOA we discussed previously. That is adding $39,985 to this division's budget. When we factor that in with cost of living increases of $27,276 and step increases of $1,091, it brings total proposed fiscal year 2027 salaries to $847,667. This budget has been broken into fixed and discretionary line items. The first discretionary line item is small tools and shop supplies, followed by construction and maintenance supplies and gravel and sand. All of those line items are level funded and unchanged from fiscal year 2026. Maintenance and services seeing a small reduction of $6,000 and supported by historical trends. The last discretionary line item in this is special castings. These are casting manhole covers and inlet stones that are needed throughout the fiscal year by this department for work throughout the city. The other remaining capital items in this budget are miscellaneous project expense. This is $50,000 for fountain maintenance. And we are requesting an increase of $15,000 based on the bid we received from that vendor. The next is structures and improvements. This is a $20,000 allocation, which remains unchanged, and this is for non-capital CIP investments and/or we have had to dip into this previously if there's a repair or something above and beyond traditional fountain maintenance that we need to pay for in the fiscal year. This contract is listed on page 39. It's with Delta Electrico and did go out to bid this fall.
Yeah, just a quick.
Council Peterson?
Thank you. Forgive me, did Parks also have a budget item for fountains?
I do not believe so.
Okay.
This, to my knowledge, is the only
one.
fountain contract.
Sorry, I thought this was in Parks for some reason. Okay, thank you.
I think it's been a little bit of a
Got it.
decision who's gonna find the fountains, but they've been here for the past couple of years.
Got it.
The next division is storm response, which is a change from a few years ago. The fiscal year 20, this is certainly not a revenue generating department. Fiscal year 2027 proposed budget is $2,291,500. This represents an $88,000 increase of the fiscal year 2026 budget of $2,203,500. The bulk of these contracts are considered discretionary. However, private contractors is considered a fixed line item that's budgeted at $150,000, and this is any sort of private snow vendor who we need to retain throughout the fiscal year. When we move down to supply line items, you can see that there's a small increase in miscellaneous expenses. This is additional funding to provide enhanced GPS service, should that be available. I believe the department is looking into that option right now. But this line item in general covers any sort of necessary food for activations, winter apparel, as well as salt storage. Construction and maintenance supplies are level funded at $50,000, as are materials, snow and ice removal. This is salt, sand, and magnesium chloride that is needed for snow and ice removal. Rentals not classified are budgeted at $611,000. That is a $56,000 increase over the fiscal year 2026 budget. We're hoping to get some sort of enhanced contract for more specialty equipment in the next fiscal year. And repairs to equipment have been level funded at $150,000.
There's a quick question. So when it says 500,000 for salaries, is that like overtime for standard DPW employees?
It's overtime for anybody working on snow removal. So
No matter what department.
No matter, the public safety doesn't typically, like if there's some sort of emergency activation and public safety needs to participate, they don't charge their overtime here. But parks, DPW, and sometimes public property will charge their overtime to this budget if it's related to a storm event.
I think I'm good.
The next division, I'm sorry, we didn't get to the slide on the contracts. So these contracts have been itemized on slide 43. They're all fairly straightforward, and we believe the contract amounts listed here are what we had anticipated in fiscal year 2026. If there are any questions, happy to talk into that, but.
Just going back to my question, Crystal, so obviously the actuals for 2026 fiscal year regarding snow response is pretty high. What's I guess what is finance, where did finance find the extra revenue to cover that expense for the current year?
So right now, we're still working on that. The finance director turned on essential spend the moment that storm started, and so we've been really trying to hone in and buckle down on where spending is gonna be. I think at this point in time, it's really departmental savings are where the bulk of this is coming from. I can't call Sarah the last operating report off the top of my head, but I think that's the bulk of where the savings is coming is from essential spend. Yes. We are, yes, the director's correct. We are seeking federal reimbursement, however, we can't count on that for this fiscal year, so we are just trying to control costs as much as we can for the remainder of the fiscal year to stay within budget and ensure that we can control those costs.
Thank you.
The next division is the traffic engineering division. Their budget details indicated found on page 331. This department does generate revenue from fees for street closure and meter impact fees. In fiscal year 2027, they're budgeted at $620,000, which is a slight increase of the 2026 budget of $595,000. This is primarily in the detailed salary revenue line and supported by historical revenues. Total proposed expenditures in fiscal year 2027 are $1,787,206. This represents a $5,931 decrease from the fiscal year 2026 budget of $1,793,137, or a reduction of about 0.36%. There are no proposed changes to FTEs or salaries in this division. In fiscal year 2026, they budgeted $788,124. In fiscal year 2027, we're making adjustments for cost of living increases of $5,052,000, step increases for $624,000, and propose to bring total proposed fiscal year 2027 salaries to $785,801. The traffic engineering budget has also been broken into fixed and discretionary line items. The vast majority of these line items are considered discretionary. The first is fees not classified at $10,000. Next up, we have the miscellaneous professional services, which are budgeted at $10,000. There's an allocation of miscellaneous expenses for $3,000, small tools and shop supplies of $10,000, traffic signs for $70,000, repairs to equipment for $56,100. This is necessary for signal repairs and maintenance. Additionally, there's $180,000 allocated for line striping, which is usually under contract. Contracts related to this department have been listed on slide 49. The largest of which is safety markings for line striping. Additionally, there's a contract with the Ocean State Signal for the purchase and repair of traffic signals and Chromaline for traffic signs and related materials, for total contracts of $286,232. Wraps it up.
Thank you, Crystal.
I need a drink of water.
Yes. Do you need a break or anything?
No, thank you, no, I appreciate it.
She's like, no, I actually really want to hurry the move, so I get it, Chris.
Does anyone have any questions for Crystal before we move on to director? I'm sure some questions will pop
I'll
up.
be here.
Nah, this meeting is not able to continue about Crystal. So she leaves, we're all done today. Director, the floor is yours. Before you start, I just want to say, obviously your department has dealt with a lot this past year in many ways, and we're 15 counselors are very grateful to all the workers and you for all the service you do.
Thank you so much. That means a
We'll
lot.
start on a positive note.
That's very ominous.
I'm trying to be more and more positive because how just so you're aware where I've come before. Before a director starts, sometimes I'll say, thank you for everything you've done. What are your concerns? Where are we falling short because of limitations? So sometimes I kind of throw directors or administrators off a little bit. So I'm trying to be more positive in that aspect. But not saying that this conversation is going to go negative or anything.
I appreciate that. I actually have a couple of remarks, if you would allow me, and they are actually very positive. I'm almost halfway through my 4th year as DPW director, and this last year has seen really a lot of advancement, if you will, not just within the culture itself, but in the work and the proactivity that's happening. Certainly the move for many of us from 700 Allen's to 75 Chapman has played a big part in that. Just having a workspace that's clean and safe and professional and really uplifting, it has made a huge difference, I think, in the quality of people's outlook when they come into work. And I think the work actually reflects that. I'm very grateful to be part of this team. The reason I bring all of them here is they're the experts. And so you know, it's important that you hear from the experts in their individual divisions. I do want to acknowledge that we do receive an awful lot of support from council and from the mayor's administration, and without that, we wouldn't be able to do the work that we've been doing. So starting with, we touched on a little bit the trash and recycling cart rollout. It's a huge undertaking for a city this size, and I have to say that not been without hiccups, and we're not 100% done yet because we still have to take care of some of the things that lag. And there were a few hiccups, but really amazingly few when you think about the breadth of the project. And again, it's been an amazing team effort from sustainability and DPW environmental that literally deal with it every single day. We did make some changes to how the environmental inspectors do their work. When we made the move to 75 Chapman, we kind of restructured them in a way that allows them to be in the field longer during the workday and to have eyes on things in a different way and to do some of the work that would normally drive them back to the office in the afternoon, to be able to do that work right there in the field. And so I feel like that's been a real improvement. We are working with the recycling team from Zero Waste Providence, as I mentioned, and between our own environmental staff and sustainability, we are seeing an increase in the recycling rate that I'm really hopeful and confident is going to continue that trend. And that's a real savings. That's a real dollar savings for Providence constituents. New snowplows have started to arrive. Hallelujah. We've gotten 3 so far. We had a contest to name the first one. It's called Providence.
Where was this contest advertised?
So the first contest was held among DPW staff as part of our celebration of Public Works Week. Last week, we had a contest where staff suggested names. So that was the winning name, and I liked it because it wasn't Googled. Someone actually thought of it. And so it's on the side of the snowplow now. We've already had it put on there, and we plan on running another contest to name another snowplow with the kids from the rec center. So in addition to that, we continue to make operational improvements to snow response. It was a really tough winter, as we all know. But if nothing else, we learned some lessons. We always learn lessons after every storm. After every storm, I convene my team. We have what we used to call in my old place a hot wash. Basically, okay, what worked, what didn't, what do we need to do better, what do we need to do different, how can we make this work better? And so we've certainly learned a lot of lessons from this past winter, and we're spending the off season, if you will, to work on initiatives to improve our response to snow. So we continue to get better with every season. We're continuing our proactivity in sewer operations with stormwater response and proactive preventative measures. Not seeing knocking on wood, the flooding that we saw in the first year that I was here, and that's due to a large amount of work done every day preventatively by the sewer division. Part of that is the hurricane barrier. That work complete. That was a can that was kicked down the road for many years, and I'm very, very pleased that it's finally gotten done and done right, and it's going to be maintained. And that's just for the preservation of the city itself. And so there's a really smart thing that has been done, and I appreciate the council's support on that. Spring is here, so sidewalks, road paving underway. An awful lot of bridge work has been spearheaded by our chief engineer, Craig Hoffman, in a way that has really not happened before in the city of Providence, and certainly by DPW, and I credit Craig for that, for taking the lead on that. That's going to ensure safety and good safe bridges for the city of Providence for decades to come. Traffic calming and curbside management are slammed, as we talked about in a hearing a couple of weeks ago. Recently, the curbside administrator, Melanie Jewett, and I visited the DPW in Boston to look at their operation, pick up a few tips from them. It was very informative, but we also have some good networking now. We have some other experts in that field that we can tap into to help improve our own operations. And traffic calming, certainly, I know Nate works very closely with council staff on all of those requests and to get them right. We've even made some administrative improvements. We're using less paper. Figured out ways to use staff time more efficiently. really feel like the professionalism in that area has been raised again, in part because we moved to a new building. And when you look out the window of my office now, you can see the construction of the new DPW complex, which is really going to position DPW to provide top-tier city services for decades to come. It's going up fast. Every day I look at it, I can't believe how much has already been done, and it's incredibly gratifying, especially to long-term staff who thought it would never happen. But it's going to be an amazing benefit for the city. So happy to be here and happy to answer any of your questions.
Awesome, thank you. Before we open it up to committee, just because this topic has been and I mean, now neighbors are starting to ask what lessons have we learned, and more importantly, what are we doing to provide a better response when it comes to snow removal. And obviously, we all know this was historic numbers. But neighbors pay taxes and demand services from us. So what can you tell us right now, Director, on lessons learned, and more importantly, what are we doing, and how can we supplement any requests that might support those efforts?
Sure. Some of the things were frankly already in the works. They just hadn't arrived yet, which is the snow plows, and we expect I believe 6 more new snow plows. So that, certainly our equipment is aging, and so we're very happy to be bringing on new equipment. We struggle with our vendors who in decades past brought us large trucks. There were companies that would use, bring us their 6-wheelers, their 10-wheelers, and those have kind of fallen off. And we're really relying now on vendors that they're great, but they're bringing us pickup trucks. And you can't really plow Providence pickup trucks, so we're looking at now better utilizing vendors who can bring us better machinery. And so that's one of the things that we're looking at. We learned that certainly don't want to ever have to deal with another 38-inch storm. We don't have to. But there are opportunities to use larger trucks. And so we're breaking up our storm response into tiers, if you will. And so there's a level of storm prediction where we know we can handle it in-house, and then there's a level where we need a little help from some vendors, and then there's a level where we're going to need a lot of help from bigger vendors.
Are those tiers in place already, or you're saying?
No, this is all, as I said,
developing tiers?
We're meeting, our team is meeting, and we're working on really a snow playbook, if you will, for the future and for even just next winter. And so that's one of the concepts that we're looking at. We're also looking at better communication with the community. We heard that loud and clear. People want to know, when can I expect a snowplow in my neighborhood? And so we are researching with public property enhancements to the GPS system that currently exists that might provide us better opportunities to provide better communication with constituents for things like that. When might I see a snowplow in my neighborhood? It's not an unreasonable request. And so we want to be able to do that better and provide a better link between snow ops, which is the war room, if you will, at DPW during a snowstorm, and the community that relies upon us. So we're looking at a lot of different things. Nothing's been totally pinned down right now because it's 85 out, thank God. But we know that we'll be ready when the first flake hits. We know we're going to have a better system.
Yeah, follow up, Councilor Peterson.
Thank you. Just a quick question. What was the structure of the communication with this big one that we had? And because of the reaction of our constituents, it's probably good to know so that way we can understand a little more.
Sure. I mean, it wasn't really formal. With the blizzard, we did have, the mayor moved in. The mayor and his team worked in a conference room down the hall from me for the entire week. And so we had good interaction with the comms team from the mayor's office, and they pushed out an awful lot of messaging through social media, through those avenues. We want to build on that, and so that's why we're looking at how can we take information literally from the truck that's on the road in your ward and turn that into some information that the community can use. And so it's still early on.
Yeah.
Talking to our current GPS vendor and working with the fleet manager to see what kinds of options there are for us.
Thank you.
Is it a follow-up on this topic? Oh, okay, because I do have another follow-up, go ahead, Vice Chair. My question on this topic, Director, is the whole system of inspectors. To me, it makes sense when we have the capability, I guess you could say, to keep up with a storm, but I feel once we reach a certain limit where we're not able to keep up with it, for me, in my opinion, unless I'm not comprehending something, is not resources spent well. So maybe if that could be factored into the tier system would be my feedback.
It has been.
Yeah.
I don't disagree with you at all. I think you hit the nail on the head. And so one of the things that we're looking at revamping is that entire system of inspectors. One thing we did toward the, I don't want to say the end of the blizzard, but kind of that midweek point when we almost started to turn the corner, but we weren't there yet. We divided the city up into quadrants rather than just the 15 wards. We still had someone in every ward, but we divided the city into quadrants and made kind of like super inspectors, if you will. And we found out that it worked really well because it allowed for an exchange of resources among those different parts of the city in a much easier way than when there were 15 of them, each guarding their own territory. And we also frankly handpicked them. And so we picked the best ones. And so it's, the management of inspectors has at times been very challenging and counterproductive, and a time suck, if you will, during snow operations, the time and resources that could be better spent. And so that is absolutely something that we're looking at to change and improve.
Thank you. Vice Chair Taylor?
Let's follow up on that. I don't think the inspectors work at all, in my opinion.
Some do.
No, I'm just saying, I don't think,
Oh, you mean the
I
system
agree, the
itself,
whole
yeah.
system, I think
It
it could
needs
have
to
been,
be, it needs to be overhauled, absolutely.
I went out of my own ward and I know other council people did.
I went out and I got stuck, so I went back in.
I went out and like I'm calling stuff in that inspectors, I don't know where they were. And I called the inspectors and then they weren't where, I'm like, how about this? Oh, that's not my area, that's this guy's area. So I call that guy, oh, I thought I had this area. It was very confusing. They were not on the same page, in my opinion, that and that. But as far as the GPS, does all vehicles in DPW, including yourself, from top to bottom, do they have GPS in their vehicles?
Yes.
And who keeps track of that?
So I have access to all the DPW vehicles. Property has access to all city vehicles because it's not just us, it's parks, it's property, it's DIS. I think each director has access to their own department.
But what do we do on the vendors? In other words, the vendors that come in, there's quite a few, they don't have GPS.
So that's one thing that we're looking at too, is how do you install, if you will, a GPS system in a vendor's vehicle? We're looking at everything from air tags to add-ons to our own GPS system that are more portable, that would allow us to is there something I can hand to a vendor and say, go put this on your dashboard that will allow me? And we're still in the early part of that conversation to find out what the options are, but it's part of the problem.
So if we have a snowstorm tomorrow, God forbid, we're not ready. I know it's off the track, but I mean, we had back-to-back snowstorms, and when everybody talks about the blizzard, but I personally thought the first one was a failure. That I didn't think we did a good,
The January 23rd snowstorm was I have the date burned into my memory. That was 17 inches, right, and it was followed by that deep freeze, which is really what hurt us. The 17 inches we probably could have dealt with at some point, the fact that it froze into cement within a day, that's where the really hard part came.
But I know we talk about it.
Back to back,
And
yeah.
being in the fire department for 28 years, we did the same thing. We talked about this, we talked about a shooting in Brown, and it never happens. You know what I mean? Then when it happens, we're like, oh my God, what do we do? Even though we talk about it so much. So I mean, I like the idea of talking about it, but my fear is that because I mean, we all heard it as council people, that, what are you doing? You know what? I'm like, listen, my street's not, you got yanked, you got pulled, and I'm like, I got no pull. My street's, look, I got a 4-wheel drive pickup, I can get out, in and out, but I couldn't get out
So
for 3 days.
There's so many aspects to it too, including training. We have we have a cohort of younger, newer staff who don't have the experience in snowplows that this department used to have. So we're addressing that issue. We're working with the Public Works Association to provide them with some specialized training. We are matching up experienced plow drivers that we have on staff with some of the new guys. And on the off season, they're gonna drive their wards. There's no snow to plow, but I've seen this done sort of like unofficially or informally with an experienced plow driver who takes it upon himself to take the new kid under his wing and show him what's what and how to do it and where the trouble spots are in that ward. We want to formalize that. And so Sal and I are working to identify who do we match up, so that they can have that kind of muscle memory before they're snowing around. So training is definitely part of it. It's not just that a plow didn't go down your street. It's what do they do when they get there? Did they plow curb to curb, or did they just do one pass down the middle? That's a training problem. And so we need to address that as well. And so there's a lot of different aspects to it, not just knowing what to do, but knowing where they are, having people assigned to the same wards to the extent that we can every time, so that they're comfortable with it, they know where they're going, and having a plan where we're working with a project manager, and he's going to help us with whether it ends up being a GIS system for us or not, or even just a paper system, where if I'm sending you to Ward 5, where are you going first? Where's the first street you're going to? Oh, I'm going to,
Here goes Joanne Street, but she'll have my heart if I don't go there.
and so like, I wanna be able to know, as we're sitting in snow ops, that if we started plowing at 5 and you're in Ward 5, you should be on Street X, and then when I look at the GPS and you're not on Street X, now I'm asked, where are you? Why are you on Street X? Because that's where you should be. At the beginning of, because we have a priority of plowing, mains, hills, hospital routes, trash routes, school routes. And so we have an idea where you should be. We need to make sure that that's where you are, and that when you're there, you're actually doing what you're supposed to be doing in terms of the way things are supposed to be plowed. So many people at DPW do this well. They've done it for decades. They can stay awake for an ungodly amount of time doing this work, and they do a fabulous job. But it's a big city, and we need to do better. And so we know that, and that's what we're working on now.
No, of course.
Have we looked into, because I know I was listening and hearing on the radio, like the trucks were sliding down the hill, obviously because it's icy and everything. Have we looked into, and I'm going back in the fire department days, because they don't have them either, like chains for the vehicles?
It's very
To
hard
put
on the
chains.
trucks, it's what the experts said to me. It's the chains we had a long talk about chains with somebody.
Kill the truck, kill the road.
It's bad for it's bad for the road, but it's also, it puts a lot of wear on the truck.
Okay, and also, I've been kind of monitoring since the last year and a half or so on jobs, and there seems to be a lot of job openings in DPW. Can you explain that? Like why? And I'm hearing people leaving, going to the state. I'm hearing people leaving just in general, and I question what's going on now. I know you can't. And part two in that question is, when you hire these people, do the directors of that department get their choice of people, or it goes up to the what you call it? We got this guy's got a CDL, he's got this, da da da. Oh no, we got to hire this person because he was recommended by blah 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 blah. How does that work? So two questions. One is, why is there so much turnover in the department?
So part of the turnover is related to something like workers' comp. If you have a few people out on workers' comp, then you do that kind of shuffle where you take that guy's job on a limited basis until he comes back.
How many, if I can, real quick, how many people off on workers' comp?
I don't have a number at my fingertips. It's a handful.
Do you have that number?
I don't, but I'll put it on the
Yeah.
list if follow-ups.
So there's that kind of shuffle that happens, and that's kind of a pain in the neck, really, because then everybody goes back, and it's very difficult to keep track of. I will say that the entry-level positions in highway have generally been able to be filled, the laborer positions, and those are chosen by the superintendent and his deputy. They interview people and they choose who they want. And I will say that some of the positions we've been challenged to fill, that require a skill set that is not, I guess, as widely available as it once was. Cement finish, you and I have talked about this before.
Are we full on that or not?
We just brought one on, and I think, do we have a second opening?
Applying again, we have one on and one on workers' comp.
Sure. I mean, we recently.
And how long was that guy hired before he went off on work? That person.
Oh.
I mean, was he he had to have been a recent hire because he didn't have anybody before.
No, he's been on a couple of years, I think. I will say that we did have two really good candidates. We brought them all the way to the end, and then one failed his VCR. And so that, it happens. And so we hired the other. Our salaries are not always competitive depending on the job. Some people can decide that they might make more money in either the private sector or for the state. But we've been rolling along hiring pretty well, more recently in highway. We've filled a lot of positions, but there's turnover.
My last one. So I know, and I gotta be careful on this one, but you haven't been working with a deputy director for like 5 months, to my understanding. Who has been doing that job? And in my opinion, I don't think we need that job. I would rather see that go to laborers. Because if you have done without 5 months with a deputy director, in my opinion.
Director, before you
I really
respond,
wanna get into this.
can you confirm, has it been 5 months since you haven't had a deputy director, or what's the timeframe?
So to the extent you should not talk about, I would not recommend that you speak about personnel matters, just because I don't think it's been properly.
Right, but the
So-
question is there a deputy director? And
Yeah.
how long is the deputy director been out?
So, yes, and so to that end, like whether or not, like that is a matter of public record if the person is in a position or not. So,
Yes.
yes, but then,
So yes, what?
so yes, to answer that question, to say surface level, if you go any further.
Well, I know that question,
No,
but I want to hear from her.
No, yeah, so then it would be,
So there isn't currently today a deputy director.
Right, but how long has that deputy director been out? Can I ask that question?
it would
We'll pay-
depend
we'll
on
pay
whether or
that
not,
person.
it would depend on whether or not the response speaks to a personnel issue. If it does, then I would recommend that that matter not be touched upon in a
Well, see,
public meeting without a proper.
And I'm
meeting
gonna
notice.
kind of go off track here. This is a problem I have when a department comes in front of us and we can't ask questions, because that's the big elephant in the room, in my opinion. Not the fault of the director, not fault of the administration, not fault of the water department. But if we can't get answers, then what are we doing? Like, we're bringing through, we're hearing all these money, oh, we got this, that, but the big answer is, we can't ask that question.
So I would just indicate that.
And I look at it as a business. We're one part of the business owners, and then there's the other part of the administration. But we can't ask questions because, no, it's the personnel matter. And I'm not getting into personnel matters, but I just want to know, like, if there's not a deputy director for the last 5 months, if that person's not there, whoever it is, they're not there, then why do we need a deputy director? That's my question. Is it that money well spent, $130,000 more spent, we could hire almost 3 laborers, where we need, they could fill potholes, so we eliminate the claims and pending suits with all the pothole people that put in stuff. So that's where I'm trying to go with it, but it's like, and I can't ask those questions. I knew that coming in here, and I actually talked to the chairman that I was upset on that, because I personally wanted to go into an executive session to do that, and I was told I couldn't. So-
Chair, if I can respond to provide guidance.
I threw a lot back. I don't mean to, I'm not throwing it, I'm just,
Here's the thing, I'm a resource, so to the extent I can help at all, I'm gonna try, and if you can ignore me, of course. So to your question as to whether or not the director now has a recommendation to have a deputy position or allocate resources otherwise, that's, I think, an appropriate question, because that is general and not specific to a position or person. So whether or not the comp structure, that structure, which is what you're going to pass on, or what was part of the budget, that's an appropriate question. If getting into the granular who, what, where, when, why of a particular person, that's something that, and I would agree with you that you're correct, it should go into executive session if specifically talking
But
about
I was
person.
denied that, so. Not you,
No, I
well,
know,
someone in your department, but not you.
but to the
I was gonna say,
extent,
make it known for the record that wasn't the chair.
It wasn't the chair, it was someone in the law department.
but to the,
And I go back to say, that's why I say that the city council, and I've said it all along in my 8 years I've been here, no disrespect to you, but the city council should have their own lawyer.
but to the extent that you have that question about allocation of resources, I think that's a perfectly valid question to ask. And
So I guess my question was, yeah, go ahead.
Respectfully, I think the department does need a deputy. It's a large, I mean, it's a small department, but it's a large department, if you know what I mean. So I mean, there's 7 divisions. It runs the gamut from emergencies, snowstorms, floods, to the mundane of potholes but then sidewalks and trash pickup and sinkholes. I met with a woman this morning in Federal Hill who had a tree invade her sewer system something like a week after she moved in and bombarded her house with sewage. Was out there this morning with Sal and with the city forester talking about this tree, trying to figure out how to. Her husband's blind and she's afraid he's gonna trip on the sidewalk, which is being disrupted by this tree. And so we went out there to look at it and to talk to her about it. These are things that really matter to people, very nitty gritty quality of life things. But it's a lot, I think, for one person, i.e. the director, whether it's me or another person who's the director of this department, to try to manage alone. And I think there is and has been a need for a deputy who can be a real partner to that director, to forward the priorities of the department, to be someone as a backstop for when the director might not be available. I will say that in the period of time that we're not going to mention, I have relied on division heads in this department to help me with a lot of kind of the extra that I've needed to deal with, and they've risen to the occasion beautifully. But that's been to the detriment of some of their own work. I really do think a deputy is very much in need in this department.
Just a little history on that for people that don't know, because I've been in the city for 39 years and 29 of them being in the fire department. There was no deputy in public works. But recently, within the last probably 8 to 10 years, they hired a deputy, and then before your term, and then that person was let go, whatever happened, I don't know what happened, and then somebody hired the new deputy. But I'm just saying that.
I didn't hire them.
Okay, well, whoever. But don't you think that if you could do 3 laborers would be more productive than someone going out to talk to someone? Because if you had the 3 laborers to go out and fix that problem, they wouldn't be calling you or any director head to fix the thing.
Don't call me impertinent, but I want both. I'd love to have as many laborers as I can get.
Well, the old saying in the fire department is, or anywhere, there's more chiefs than Indians. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So the workers are the ones, and I'm not disrespecting you, but we need more workers. Because when I was in claims and pending 6, I would look through things and say, okay, there's a pothole at my house, 6 Thurston Street, and Shelley Peterson hit it, and she wants to, or whoever, somebody hit it, and they're looking for it. Now another person, a month later, hit that same pothole, and then 2 months later, and I would be like, is this pothole fixed? And every time, 9 times out of 10, they were like, we don't know. And we're just paying out money like an ATM, and we're not getting things fixed. And then we have a deputy that's not there getting paid. I just,
without getting into this specific situation, I will respectfully disagree that there doesn't need to be a chief somewhere overseeing that.
well, you're the chief, so that's your job to oversee.
I am, but there's, like every other department in probably.
If we have someone under you that's doing your job, then we don't need you. I'm just saying, I'm sorry.
All right, so there's just, you guys can say whatever you want, there's just one person speak and another person respond and vice versa.
I will say that I'm not looking for a deputy to do my job. I don't want to put my feet up. But I really do believe that it's a necessity for a department that has been asked to do as much as this department is asked to do. And that those duties kind of increase as time has gone on. As the world evolves, a lot of us are asked to do different things. So with climate change, we're doing a lot more with stormwater than we ever did. So the department is growing in terms of its span of responsibility. And I really do think that having, we're thin managerially. Is that a word? Yes. And so having a deputy for that director, I don't think makes this department top heavy or wasteful. I think it would provide an ability to be more responsive, frankly, to council, to be more responsive to the community, because there's a division of labor there, if you will, that I think is really important and needed. And I can tell you that in this last period of time, I can just tell you that it's been a burden for a long time. To not have that ability. I'll leave it at that.
Thank you. There's a couple of follow-ups, I think, but I just want to say one thing without getting into the weeds. As the legislative branch, our job is to legislate, provide policy, do review. It's not in our best interest to get in the weeds of certain personnel, but there is concern once a certain dollar amount has been reached, attached to any personnel that's not working. So I just want you to know that that's where I'm coming from with these questions, these concerns. I think I speak for a lot of the committee members. We don't care about the back and forth rumors, whatever. Obviously, if they're gossipy, we might be curious. But our core interest and responsibility is to investigate anytime a certain dollar amount of employee on leave, whatever you want to call it, is being met. And I think that's where a lot of these concerns, questions are coming from, Director and folks from the administration.
I understand.
Thank you. I think
Not a follow-up.
okay, I think Councilor Peterson is a follow-up on this.
Yeah, but I don't necessarily know if I remember it right now. With regards to, we were going through salaries, and I think that this sort of hits all of that indirectly. We did, Chris, you spoke about changing up the salary grades on certain positions within DPW.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the things that, Director, you pointed out was that we actually are not very competitive in certain areas. And this is a consistent problem that I've been noticing across the board on certain things. And it's something that I think is important to highlight, because this is a larger conversation that I've been kind of nudging very, very gently. We have a salary review that is still being, I think, vetted for a proper company to come and help us with. But one of the questions, it's a question and a comment. One of them is, the comment is, I really wish we would have done a little bit more review on some of our labor positions so that we can actually maintain some of the people. Oftentimes, and this is something that we consistently hear, is that because we're not competitive and they have been able to learn from here, they move on. And I get it, an opportunity for an increase in cost of in wages is something that any of us would do. But it is certainly a topic of conversation when we consistently hear from our neighbors that things are not accomplished in a timely manner. And we have gone into detail for many years at this point about how long certain things take. But what the question is on this particular one, why did we move for an upgrade in the salaries on this one and haven't done the investment to be able to do it on the lower grade salaries?
So, part of the reason is that the quote unquote lower grade salaries are local 1033, and any change in that compensation would need to be negotiated.
Okay.
However, what I will say, and I don't have the exact date in front of me, I do believe recently the salary for laborers had been increased in part because of this issue. And the MOA that I spoke to earlier today was addressing a lot of those positions. So
Okay.
included on those positions, particularly in public works, are sewer equipment operators, senior sewer equipment operators, equipment maintenance supervisors, foremen, general foremen, heavy equipment operators.
Okay.
While this is a costly MOA, these are positions that I'm seeing, to your point, that are regularly either revolving doors or vacant. And I do think, without having to do the analysis,
Yeah.
that's not my background, but that's probably part of the problem, right? That these salaries are not necessarily competitive. And so while this did happen mid-year, I do believe it was an effort to acknowledge and immediately correct that as we're getting into, particularly for these, like construction season, right?
Yeah.
We need to make sure that we have these people on hand so that we can do all of these road repairs and get all of this work done in a timely manner. So, I think I agree with you. I would love that process to start a year ago and be holistic. But I think right now the focus is like band-aiding and kind of triaging the emergent positions while that RFP is being figured out in the entire city with that holistic way.
Thank you for that. That clarification was needed on my end, and I certainly don't like the Band-Aid approach, but I certainly understand the need and the reason why, so thank you. Director, with regards to the position of deputy, one thing I would actually like to hear of is from your division leaders on how that might actually be needed. I know that you said that they've taken on so much more extra responsibility, and I think it's really important to also hear from them to be able to say, yeah, actually, we referred to this in the deputy role. I think it's helpful to be able to understand. I know that I'm gonna flag for you that I'm waiting on a conversation about parking signs on a dead-end street in my neighborhood that my neighbors have been waiting 5 months for a response about. And that is another, I don't know if this was something that the deputy handled, but it is something that makes the point that I'm trying to make in terms of, and even to the vice chair's point that certain things, if we had a little bit more understanding of what's happening, it would be very helpful so that we can also save off the conversation with our neighbors. Because while they do the process of the 311, or they're reporting it to constituent services, or finally they're coming up to us to actually try and find some result. To your point, Chair, they are the taxpayer. We work for them at the end of the day, and it's never, in my opinion, and this is solely my opinion, it's never okay to not provide an answer to a taxpayer after 60, 90, 120 days. So the division leaders, I would love to be able to hear from just
Sure.
feedback. Yeah.
If I could, when I was hired, I remember, and I think I've read this in other forums with some or all of you. When I was hired, I was explicitly, I had a conversation with him, and I said, "Public Works?" And he said, and this is almost a quote, I think, "I don't need you to drive the snowplow. I need you to lead the department."
Mm-hmm.
He said, "The department has been without effective leadership, effective management, and you know how to manage," because I was managing an enormous department that was basically like a small city. And part of that is the structure of what that management team looks like. And to Councilman Taylor's point, the deputy position was a new thing, kind of, for DPW. And my understanding, again, it was before my time, is that the first one didn't work out the way maybe people thought it should. And then when I was hired, as I said, I did not hire a deputy. There was a deputy there. And so part of my mission, I'm being very careful, part of my mission is to move that department forward in a number of ways. But my main mission, as given to me by the mayor, has been to lead that department and to help form it into a better managed entity, an institution that is where the lines of authority are clearer, where the lines of responsibility are clearer, where the professionalism has been raised, where expectations are clearer. And I have spent the last 3+ years trying to do that. And I do look forward to continuing to do that. I think right now that role, it has not been fleshed out the way that my vision as directed to me would like to see it.
Mhm.
And so I don't know what they honestly think about it, but I think, in fairness to them, it's still been a very amorphous kind of concept. And so, certainly, any one of them is certainly free to answer you now or later or whenever. But that's kind of my thought process, that it's a position that was still very much kind of, in evolution. And that evolution needs to continue.
Thank you. Can I have a follow-up? So, if any of the division leaders want to speak up, that's absolutely okay. If we want to talk separately, that's okay too. 4 years in, what's the vision now?
As I was saying earlier, I think a deputy director should basically be ready to stand in the shoes of the director in a moment's notice. And I came from a place where I had that right hand, managing an enormous department with an enormous budget and a lot of responsibility. You have to have that right hand person. Which is not to say that these are not incredibly reliable public servants, that every last one of them is. They're incredible. They never fail to answer the call. But they all have their own divisions to deal with and their own work and their own specialties. And so none of them can really be like that in their current position, can't also be that right hand to the director. And so there needs to be someone who shares the vision, who understands the directives from my boss, and can help not just divide that workload up, but to be part of that team, to be that partner. There are other departments that you've had before you, and if I asked you who the director is, you could tell me. Ask you who the deputy is, you can tell me. Because when you see that director, you see the deputy. And to me, that's how it's supposed to work.
Thank you.
Is it a follow-up? Is there a follow-up?
Well, it's a question, but I don't know if it's a follow-up.
Yeah, we'll go to Counselor Davidson.
Old topic, new topic. So just bring us back to snow, drifting back to snow for a minute. Specific.
Never thought I'd look forward to talking about snow.
Well, about specifically, had a number of constituents who repeatedly requested that bike paths be cleared. And when bike paths weren't cleared, they really wanted to know, A, why not, and B, when, like where is the priority? And eventually it never happened, so it became why not. So I'm gonna get ahead of their questions for next winter, but I assume this applies in lots of places. My specific question is, in your estimation, is the problem not enough people to get in there to do it? Is it, do we not have the right equipment to do it? Or is it just neither, it's just not going to be a priority? In which case we have a sort of a legal problem because we do have requirements to clear those paths.
So it is a priority. It's obviously not the number one priority.
Yeah.
Let's be fair. I mean, it's hills, hospitals, who's got trash pickup the next day. Schools, if school's gotta be in session, gotta make sure that the buses can get where they need to be, kids can be dropped off and picked up safe. Bike paths kind of fall down the priority scale. That said, a lot of those bike paths are adjacent to RIPTA stops with handicap access, and that needs to be cleared. The first two things you kind of guessed at, you're absolutely correct. It's a resource issue within DPW, but also an equipment issue, and those are two of the things that we're looking at for next winter. One of the asks, if you will, when we talk about potentially getting more new equipment is the kind of machinery that will allow us to plow those bike paths, but also bringing on people that we can form into a team to do that work specifically. It's never going to be the day of a storm. It's just not. Because we just don't, we'll never have enough people so that we're also doing bike paths on the day of the storm or the next day. But I wouldn't say it's not a priority. It is a priority. We've been stymied by resources and equipment, but we know that, and that's the problem that we're trying to solve.
Yeah, and appreciate that. And it may seem like who wants to ride their bike in the snow, it just doesn't. There are those people who really do rely on that, but B, it's an important. A lot of those paths are important protected corridors for pedestrians, especially during the snow. where we all know the bigger picture, hard to clear the sidewalks, hard to walk. Like, I would just say, I would do everything I can to support you to get all the resources you need, but include that in the priorities. Because where those paths exist in the city, they're important for folks. And they're an important element of transportation, especially for people who don't have cars and don't have access to vehicles. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Councilor Davidson. Vice Chair Taylor?
So I'm gonna go to the solicitor first and ask her the question to see if I can ask the question or she can answer.
She's ready.
You ready, Eddie? Okay, so my question is, what is the disciplinary action? How is it different for a union member versus a non-union member in this department?
That's almost like a legal question because that requires.
Well, the union,
Yeah.
if a union person gets in trouble, they have 10 days. They're suspended with pay for 10 days. And then after the 10 days, they're either disciplined, fired, or we found nothing, bring them back. Is that the same with non-union?
It is not. I can tell you that just from an understanding of the appointed positions versus union, but that's Kenny's the employment person. And when it comes to like really getting to the nitty gritty of employment actions, that's as far as I personally know.
Okay.
So.
But how is that fair? I guess I want to say. If they both one does something wrong, one does something worse. The non-union does worse, but the union, did whatever. The guy gets suspended, whatever, girl, whatever, got suspended for 10 days. They got paid, so it's not, but then all of a sudden now they get disciplined, or they get demoted, or they get this or that, or whatever the deal is. The discipline can be, can't take overtime, whatever it is, but the non-union person is not disciplined. How is that? Same thing. They did the same thing. How is that fair
Well.
to the union person?
Oh.
Because the union have to stick by the rules. It's in the CBA, that's what they have. The non-union's kind of like a flip of a coin, and they're still getting paid or doing whatever. The knows they're paid, this guy's only paid for 10 days with leave, and then he's, like I said, disciplined, found nothing, demoted, fired. Non-union does something wrong, months go by, still paid without leave. How is that different? I mean, why is that fair?
So fairness as just as a policy decision, and our office can only speak to what the law requires. And with union employees, there's a contract in place, and that's a negotiated instrument. It takes, luckily I'm not involved, but I understand it takes months to negotiate those different aspects, and it's intended to be a meeting of minds between two parties. An appointed position is going to be dictated by state statute, home rule charter, and different ordinances, and it comes to the separation there. And it should be a case-by-case analysis in that situation as to how to handle the situation, whatever it may be, discipline, et cetera.
But if we talk charter, we'll talk charter. In the charter, it says if that non-union person goes past $10,000, they come here and explain why they're still being paid for $10,000. Why, I guess, hasn't that happened?
Why the non?
Why the non-union person has not come in front of us?
I don't know that to be true. I don't know that structure. I don't know that what you're referencing. So to the extent it hasn't happened, I don't know that is necessarily the case. But if you'd like us to review the home rule charter and its application in a particular instance.
I'm just saying we have charter rules, and it seems to be, no matter through my 8 years I've been here, we pick and choose what we're going to use. When we want to do something here, forget that. And it's all in council to everybody. We all do it. And I'm going, like I said, I can't talk about this because my hands feel like this. I'm trying to ask you a question, and I can't really ask you the question I want to ask because I'm handcuffed. Not your fault.
No, I hear you. And to the extent you ever want to, speak to anybody in the law department, we'll always be able to provide legal advice and counsel as well, as this, including, not limited to, what it would take to go into executive session with adequate notice to any party to be able to talk about personnel matters, or just legal advice as the application of the home rule charter to series of facts. So, where we are. Whenever you want to talk.
I just.
Can you, just since we're talking about it, can you explain, if we're gonna go into executive session, what needs to happen? A notice, you said?
Yeah, so similar to the general Open Meetings Act compliance requirements, you need to have 48 hours notice with the posting as to what issue you would like to bring to executive session. whatever that item is needs to conform with one of the different topics under the Open Meetings Act that can be allowed for executive session. Personnel matters, legal advice, and there's a few other categories, I don't have them memorized. But we would make sure that that whatever you'd like to speak about falls into those categories. Then if it's a personnel matter, I believe that notice has to be provided to the individual who's identified as a personnel matter. For legal advice, there should be a lawyer in the room, because otherwise it's not legal advice, you're just gotta talk about a case. And there are other different requirements for the different elements. And then the notice itself needs to explicitly cite the executive session exemption for an open meeting within that notice when it's published. I'm pretty sure I have them all, but there's a checklist that I can help run through.
And just to go on record, I did give that to the chair way more than 48 hours, because I know the rule, not his fault. He was told not to go in executive session. But I just want to let people know that I know the rule, I have to be in executive session. Not his fault, but he was told couldn't go into executive session. That's why we're here today. That's why I feel like my hands are tied. Not your fault. You weren't the person that told him no. So. Okay.
Yes, and no, it's a little more complicated than that, but just to be clear, I think.
Well, I did give it, the end, the question is, I gave you more than
No,
48 hours.
my question, I get my reason to ask the question was regarding the notice to the person. I wanted that to be clear that, like, yeah, I think we all know about the 48-hour agenda, but it also has to be notified to personnel that it's speaking about personnel. So I just wanted to make sure that was clear. But unless anyone else has anything, I think the last thing I would say is that, I mean, the city council definitely needs to go in executive session over this topic, whether that's in this committee, another committee.
Well, the problem is if it goes to another committee, then it's too late.
I think it's, I disagree with that, but that's either here or there, but I definitely agree that some type of conversation between council and folks from the administration need to happen in executive session on this. I think we're all in agreement with
I'm not gonna argue.
All right.
I said more than I wanted to.
Councilor Davis, are you all set? Sorry.
I am.
Councilor Vargas.
Thank you very much. Definitely we need a solution, because it's $40,000 that we losing. And you really need a deputy there. So for the last 6 months, you've been out with no help, and you're asking for one, and at the same time, we're losing money, more than 40,000. But let's leave that item for another section. I got a question for you, David. Do you have any idea how much fuel are we spending so far? Fuel, diesel, gasoline?
I do not.
No.
I can pull that for you. That's in the it's in the public property budget. So what budget for? Are you talking about auto fuel?
Auto fuel, yeah.
Yeah, I can get that budget number for you. I don't have it.
On the DPW only?
So all of the fuel costs are charged to the public property budget. So police, fire, anybody who's buying fuel for an auto is being paid for. out of
But they
the public
separate by categories. DPW, they know who's pumping gas today.
The Department of Public Works does get a report from the vendor. On the accounting side, we see 100% of the expense paid by public property, but I could reach out to the fleet manager and see if he has a report of usage by department, if that's what you're looking for.
Yeah, but I'm saying like a DPW is pumping 20 gallons today. Those public works will find out this came from DPW. That's the question.
So the gas cards that are given to individuals are tracked by the individual. I believe there's reporting capability from that vendor, but there's not, like, I don't think the DPW director gets a report once a month of how much her division is spent, or her departments have spent in gasoline. Like, I don't think that's a process that exists currently.
The reason is because with $5 a gallon, or $5 a diesel, we need to find out ways how we can start less using the trucks, or make one trip for the whole city or anywhere, but start saving money on fuel. Because you asking for a lot of money in this budget, and we have to figure out how you guys going to say, look, today, this department is not taking the car home because they start using your own car now. Because we paying for it. for you to take the car home, go back and forth. It's no emergency on summertime. Tell me what emergency is, what?
There can absolutely be sewer emergencies. We have we have two employees in our sewer division who respond to emergencies at all days or hours from home. And they need to have those vehicles. I mean, one of them has a van full of equipment in order to respond to that emergency. If you're in your home, your constituents in a home having a sewer emergency, you don't want to wait for that guy to go to DPW, get his truck, get the equipment, and then go. He can go right to that emergency. And so they're not limited to snow.
How many emergencies have we get so far in this year?
Oh, I don't know. I could find out.
That's the question. Like, every time we ask you a question, nobody knows. I can find out. That's the same.
Well, to be fair, Councilman, I mean, it's the contingency, right? It's the I might not have had any house fires in my house in the last year, but I have smoke detectors, and I bought smoke detectors in case. And so a lot of those, the people that have the take-home vehicles, and there's a very small number in DPW who have the take-home vehicles. It's not like a perk of their job. It's in recognition that the work that could be called upon to do is going to require a speedy response to that emergency. We hope it never happens, but in case it does, you want that guy to be able to go from home to that emergency. One of the people that has a take-home truck is our traffic electrician. You have traffic lights out. You want that guy to be able to go from home with the equipment, with the truck that he needs to that emergency, not to have to stop up at DPW to get his equipment and so forth. And so I hope it never happens. I hope the number is low, but I'm very comforted by the fact that if it happens, that guy, that staff person is gonna have the equipment in the vehicle needed to get their equipment.
Hopefully, it never happens, but by the time the person gets to the emergency, that baseball is going to get flooded. They live 3 hours away from here.
No one lives 3 hours. Every take-home vehicle in DPW is driven by someone who lives in the state of Rhode Island. No one is 3 hours away from DPW or from Providence.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That's it. I think we should name one of the plows Councilman Vargas.
No.
That's my suggestion. Councilor Peterson?
I would like to ask for an opportunity to work on something with regards to sidewalks and trees that abut sidewalks, my favorite subject. Oftentimes, I specifically relate this to an issue that happened in my neighborhood where a tree came down from a windstorm last year. The sidewalk is completely lifted. The trunk is not fully removed yet. And essentially the neighbor was left to call back to 311 to say, hey, Forrester, I need somebody to come and assess this so that this can get removed. Oftentimes when we hear, and we have a lot of these, it's the reason why I asked for the Forrester to be here when DPW was here, because it would be helpful to have the back and forth. Oftentimes when our constituent services team does go back and forth to try and figure this out, it kind of just falls or goes into the abyss and we don't actually have a follow-up. If it's not, if the response isn't necessarily from the sidewalk side, but actually the Forester needs to come in and assess. And then we don't hear any, or vice versa, and then we don't hear anything back. And so one of the things that I'd like to see if there's a possibility of creating a system for and actually having a little bit of a follow-up, perhaps to our constituent services team or something through 311 that will allow the neighbor to be advised once the conversation between both parties has happened so that we can then move on a better relay of communication on that particular topic. It's one that is happening a little bit more as our trees are, the trees that are left over, and to the Forester and to the team here at DPW, you guys do a tremendous job, but this particular part for neighbors, even though we understand that there's a very long process to this, sometimes it is very helpful to be able to have just a little bit of understanding of what it's going to cost. If this is something that we can do through our very small pockets of funding as counselors, these are helpful opportunities to be able to create just a little bit more communication for the neighbor. If we can create that and then just follow up with what that might look like, that would be great. And then I think I have one more question. No, I'm good with that. That's it.
I have a couple of, if you could think of anything else, do you have anything else?
All right, Al.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Quick question, sorry to go back to plows. Is there any camera equipment on plows that faces the road?
So one of the possible add-ons to GPS has to do with cameras, whether they're forward-facing cameras that you can see what's being plowed, or whether they're driving-facing cameras, so you can see what the person driving is doing. And that's currently in process where we're talking to, it's through public property, frankly. The fleet manager is talking to some vendors to see what the options are, and then getting feedback from all of the departments that have vehicles in use for city business to see what our thoughts are. I'm in favor of a forward-facing camera. I think that could be a really useful tool.
You are supportive of a forward-facing camera on a plow?
Yes.
But there isn't any on any.
Right now, there's not, but it is a potential, there's a potential for that to be added on. I don't know where that stands today,
Right.
but I can say that I have been in conversations with public property, and they've been in conversations with some of the vendors to see what the possibilities are.
Right. And then just the last question on plows, I promise. I keep hearing the concern, or not the concern, the challenge of heavier equipment by vendors not being available anymore. And at the same time, I hear, us getting a few more plows. But I don't think that like closes the issue. So I guess like what else are we doing to make sure that we have the proper level caliber of equipment to handle some of these bigger storms?
Sure, so we're very grateful for the allocation of new vehicles. It's been a long time coming. Literally, these vehicles were ordered almost 2 years ago. They've just taken forever to get here. I'd love to say that they're like adding to our fleet. They're gonna fill holes right now. And that's nobody's fault. I don't blame anybody for that. It's the way it is. There's never enough money to go around for everybody's need. I get that. But we are really grateful that we are receiving that investment. But to your question, that goes back to what I was saying before about looking at storms in terms of levels. And what we did learn when we brought what we kind of informally have been calling like the big boys with the blizzard. When we brought the bigger companies in with the bigger machinery, and I'm not talking about the thing that blows the snow and has the dump trucks following it. It was fabulous during the blizzard. Hopefully we'll never need to have that kind of thing again. Mm-hmm. But some of those other larger vehicles that are bigger than what our vendors have been bringing us.
Like to clear the snow and stuff you're saying? Like,
yeah. So like front end loaders or payloaders and some of the backhoes, equipment that we brought in with the bigger snowstorms. We are looking at how can we utilize those kinds of contracts for non-blizzard snowstorms that are still bigger than our vendors can really handle.
Right.
So that's kind of one of the things that we're looking at in developing.
Makes sense.
A way to bring some of those on depending on the tier of storm that we're going to be dealing with.
Okay, actually, last question on snow response. I know a couple of counselors introduced certain resolutions regarding like reports, which obviously I don't know how much justice it'll do at this point. But I guess like going forward, it seems like you're doing a lot of work around this. Do you plan on like writing anything down? Like what could you provide in writing to counselors in the hopefully very near future regarding snow response changes, improvements, policies going forward? I guess hopefully this tier system is on a paper document at some point, and at least to be aware so we're able to communicate with our neighbors around this.
So with the overhaul of the city's policy manual in total, all of the policies that got kind of reissued, rewritten, and revamped, one of those policies was actually on snow operations, and it was timing is everything, right? So the policy that got included in that binder when all the new policies or the refreshed policies from this administration were unveiled, that's the policy I'm rewriting.
Right.
So it's going to be rewritten, and so I think that would be a good vehicle for you to see the changes that we want to make. We're not there yet, but we will be, because the work we're doing in the wake of this past winter is going to change what's in that existing policy in a significant way, and so it will definitely be rewritten, and I think that'd be a good vehicle for you to look at.
All right. Councilor Peterson?
Thank you. Just a quick question on the plow vendors. You had mentioned earlier that we were beginning to see a lot of plow vendors were just bringing the trucks with the front plow. Is there a particular reason why did the contract change, or they were just bringing that on their own?
No, and so I have the benefit of people who have worked for this department. I worked for the city in snow ops for a very long time, so they have a lot of history that they tried to educate me on. People have just aged out of doing that business. And then some people who have businesses that utilize that equipment during the day, they don't want to plow in Providence. They might, I can explain. So maybe they go to the state, because when you plow for the state, it's a highway. It's a long, straight, generally flat thing. A city has little streets, potholes, sidewalks, hills, speed bumps, all kinds of challenges that really beat the daylights out of the truck.
Okay.
And for a person whose livelihood is dependent on that truck during the day, they don't really want to bring it to us during a storm and have it beaten up. Now they have to deal with that headache. And so as years have gone on, I would say men and women, but it's mostly men who have brought us those big machines have kind of aged out of the business, and they just don't want to do it anymore.
Okay.
Whereas you have, kind of a crowd of people who, hey, I have a pickup with a plow on it. Let's go. It's great. Can't plow a whole city with pickups.
Right.
And so that's why I do want to rely on looking at some of those businesses that we used really kind of for the first time during the blizzard, of bringing on some people with the bigger machines when needed, not every storm. There are storms where our vendors of pickup trucks, in conjunction with highway, no problem.
And that was the majority for the longest time until this year, right?
Majority of the storms until this past winter.
Thank you.
You know, Councilor Peterson?
I think so, yeah.
I have two last questions. The last question regarding, it's in regards to mechanics. I dived into this a little bit when public property was in front of us, and it got brought up where it was explained to me how different departments have different mechanics. Is your amount of mechanics, obviously we know more is better at times, but I guess what's the average amount of vehicles that are out of commission at any given time?
Talking everyday vehicles that are being used or sell vehicles?
I guess yes to both parts. I guess during the snowstorm, I'm sure you had DPW vehicles go down. Were we able to get them?
Well, the mechanics will identify what the problem is, getting the pot is no.
Right.
I can use a sewer truck, for example, our boom's broken, it's 8 weeks to rebuild the crane on that. So that's sent out, so it can vary depending on if they have to send it out to a contract, place to have it done. So, all of it's something as simple as it needs tires, or it ranges from that day. I know my truck, when my other clamshell digger goes down, it's in and out in an hour.
So normally, can't solve, like, know what the problem is. If we don't know what the problem is, or work on it or 2 days, then finally we'll send it out to a professional to handle it. Most of the time, our mechanics do know what's the matter with the vehicle. It's either we're waiting for a part, or it's gonna be prefab.
So have we, Sal, have we been at this staffing level in terms of mechanics and DPW for quite some time, or have you seen, was there more before, was there less before, or has this kind of stayed?
It's about the same. We've hired 2 mechanics in the last 2 months.
We have someone on military.
Pretty much more closer.
Is the equipment maintenance supervisor also a mechanic, or do they just run the garage?
Steven, well, they run the garage, but Steven, went to sweep You go Ricky or?
Yeah, Ricky, yeah.
Is he a mechanic now?
So what's like his main, I don't wanna say like the personnel, but
Check,
like what's,
we'll be checking inspection stickers, make sure the vehicles are registered, tell the guys to check their oil. Then we have like work orders, so like, pre-equipped, vehicles. It's going to be given to him and do a walk around the problem with the vehicle. It still goes to that person. Then he submits it to the mechanics.
so the two outside of the senior mechanic, so you said there's 2 mechanics hired in the past couple months?
Right.
And one of those is not the mechanic on leave?
Right, one of them is filling in for the mechanic.
So I see here, so under the DPW garage, there's the shop supervisor, the equipment maintenance supervisor, equipment body repair senior mechanic, which is specific to body repair, I'm assuming. And then senior mechanics, there is 3, 1 on leave, so that leaves 2. I'm referencing an org chart, just so you're aware. So that leaves 2, and then you said 2 just got hired. So I guess I'm just trying to understand if all we have at DPW mechanic shop right now is 2 senior mechanics that are fairly new to the
Now we
department.
have 3.
And then, if I may,
Yeah.
4.
new to DPW, but not new to being a mechanic.
Right.
Right, so basically, the one of the last persons we hired, worked for a fleet.
Right.
He knows his stuff. So right now we have 4 on duty.
4 on duty.
Correct.
So when the 1 comes back from leave, you'll have 5?
Correct.
No, one will have to go, or unless we can absorb him somewhere else.
He won't get rid of it.
Because one of them's what's called limited, because he's filling in for the guy in the military.
Might have some follow-up questions later on, but we'll leave it at that. My last question, is it Brandon? What's Brandon?
Yes, sir. That's me.
Our first interaction was you appearing before us in the council chambers in regards to, was it a blizzard or
It
what?
was pre-blizzard, post
So
January.
I feel like the council committee and you maybe kind of got off on the wrong start, you could say. Since then, there's obviously been a lot of development when it comes to recycling. And hopefully, we continue some of this work in terms of getting our fines down and more people recycling. So yeah, I guess can you just give us a quick overview of what your experience has been, what you envision? I've heard positive things about you. You seem like a stand-up guy. So yeah, just give us a couple paragraph or 2.
And don't be pressured at all by the fact that I'm 3 feet away from you.
Yeah.
You speak freely.
So far, with regards to the rollout, I know Councilman Peterson asked a little bit about it before. Additionally, we've had, a good week would be like 7 trucks pass at the landfill or at the recycling facility at the landfill. I would like the 60 that we take there weekly. Over the last, say 6 to 8 weeks, kind of in conjunction with the car rollout, some of the education and enforcement efforts, we've been averaging probably closer to like, I think high point has been 18 that passed. I'd say we probably average closer to like 13 or 14 passing weekly. Which, I mean, maybe doesn't sound like a lot, but it's double what we were doing before.
Sure.
So that's very encouraging. Yeah, is there anything other specific that you'd like to hear more about?
Yeah, I guess what I'm most interested in getting your thoughts or opinion on is outside of the recycling education, which seems like we've been doing for the past few years. What else are we doing outside what this Zero Providence waste contract? I mean, shout out to everyone that's doing that work, and they invited me for that 4 a.m. It's gonna be hard to get me up. I guess like what I'm thinking is like, how can we continue some of this type of work going forward? Obviously, you're one person, your team is limited. I guess, yeah, how can we continue? What my concern is, I feel like there needs to be a slightly bigger investment. We're investing obviously in these carts, millions of dollars. I just feel like there's still something kind of slacking or lacking in this proposed budget to keep that momentum going forward. And I'd love to hear the collaboration with you guys, sustainability, and obviously Zero Waste Providence. I always, in the back of my mind, thought that there should have been a little bit more there from the beginning. So the fact that that's happening, I guess. I don't know if my question is clear or not.
Sure. Yeah, so kind of touch on like the collaboration between DPW, CWP, sustainability. Runs even a little bit deeper than that. Our vendor, WM, I think we really kind of aligned and like strengthened our partnership with them. They've been a great asset and resource as well. Their fleet of drivers, I think they have probably the greatest on the street day-to-day understanding of the status of each of their respective routes. They see them day in and day out. Many of their drivers have been seeing them day in and day out for tens of years. And then the folks at Resource Recovery, we work very closely with them as well. And so I think just kind of all 5 of those entities working together, pulling in the same direction, is already starting to yield some pretty good results. I think we just kind of stay the course of what we're doing. There's plenty more to be had. We've sat down, myself and some of the folks at WM, and took that info from their drivers, really kind of create we'll call it a ranking system of routes that pass, routes that are like kind of close to passing with a little bit of help, could probably get there pretty easy. Routes that maybe aren't so close to passing, but have some things working in their favor, lots of single family homes, things that are easily accessible to help get them across the finish line. And admittedly, there's also plenty of routes that are just in really bad shape that are going to take a considerable amount of work. But it gives us the opportunity to kind of prioritize and kind of do things that are going to have very immediate impact. Both for the residents, the environment, the bottom line. Really kind of capture all that with our efforts. So
when did how long has it been happening, the prioritizing levels, I guess, of routes?
Sure. We sat down and kind of went over all that data maybe 3-4 weeks ago. So a lot of the work that CWP does, we kind of do in conjunction with one another. And we try to steer them in the direction where they can make the most impact as well.
Right.
And another kind of key thing that we've started to do is typically these trucks, when they're on their routes, it takes 2 truckfuls to complete one route.
Right.
So kind of as you touched on before, a lot of these trucks are getting on routes very early in the morning, 4:30, 5 o'clock in the morning. So you just, that first truck load is almost impossible to capture, like you just can't get out there early enough to get far enough ahead of them where they don't catch you. So we've had a concerted effort to chase the second truck, like a second truck load, because it gives us plenty of time to get out ahead of them. So we can canvass almost that, well, not even almost that entire second truckload before that truck catches us. So therefore, if we're gonna send it to the recycling facility, we can send it with a pretty significant level of confidence that it will pass real time that day. And then we will keep them on the same routes each week for typically 3 to 4 weeks at a time. And then now we're kind of getting to that point, we want to see if, after these weeks of direct intervention, if they start to pass on their own.
Follow up.
Yeah, so we're kind of coming into this like exciting next phase of some of the routes that we've given a lot of attention. We'll see how they'll do, if we're not giving them that direct attention. So see if we've been able to make some leeway or headway rather with kind of behavior change.
Right.
Yeah.
I guess the last question I have, thank you, that's helpful. And I think a lot of this work, it's kind of in the weeds, but like you definitely have to get into it to try to improve on, especially ones that are pretty close. I think the fact that we can spend a little bit more energy, know which routes, have gotten accepted 75% of the time, 25% they need help. So giving that extra attention, helps us in the long run, but also going back and making sure that, they don't only just do good when we're giving them extra attention, but how do we change some of this behavior over time. The last question I had regarding garbage routes is what streets are picked up when. I don't know. I've always have had garbage day on the same day. I feel like since I've ever lived in Providence. But I guess has that been reviewed? Making sure that it makes the most sense that this ward or this part of the city gets picked up on day A. Has that I don't know when has the most comprehensive review on garbage collection, and I'm sure waste management plays a big role on determining this. But I guess have you done that type of work or?
You mean have I done that type of work currently, in my
yeah, currently, yeah.
Okay. No, so typically kind of the route days and areas, my understanding is that was kind of predetermined by WM and what they've traditionally done here in the city. So we haven't done any type of analysis to see if changing that would make sense. I don't know that would yield anything necessarily to go through all that.
I guess where I'm thinking where my hope is if the routes can stay the same, but if say truck A is starting on Leah Street at 4 a.m. every day or every garbage pickup day, but the next week it started at another street, so you could get Leah Street inspected. I don't know if it's too much work for the drivers. Obviously, they're pretty sure probably on cruise mode, but I think that would be a way to at least be able to capture the data on the streets that aren't getting picked up so early.
So typically, when they're kind of constructing the routes, there's certain things they're taking into account. Oftentimes, it's your major thoroughfares, areas that if you tried to collect them at certain times of day, it would just be nearly impossible with regards to just be creating major traffic issues, accessibility if it's streets where there's lots of on-street parking, it just you wouldn't be able to physically get to the carts. You don't have that side load system.
Right.
So the accessibility just wouldn't work. So typically they're routed with taking a bunch of that type of stuff into account,
Right.
to where they can just kind of most easily service areas that would be difficult to service later in the day. So that would be hard to pivot off of those things, but yeah, not to say that there couldn't be some type.
You can tell me it was a bad idea. I don't take it personal. That's why I'm in this seat and I don't work for waste management.
Yeah.
Councilor Peterson.
I just wanted to give a quick point of feedback. I was going through my emails. I have many to respond to. And I had a couple of neighbors reach out and say that the trash cans are already broken. For a variety, the handles are ripped, the lids are kind of split in half, so I don't know if it's just a fluke kind of situation, but it's just a little point of feedback that the Ward 14 got them less than about 3 weeks ago. So, or some of Ward 14 got them about 3 weeks ago. So it's just I don't know if this is, you guys give any information back to the people that sold us all the carts, but I know that I was not the only one to receive some notice on trash cans that were breaking. The other two have already left, but it
Can you
just.
forward those emails to me?
Yeah, absolutely, will do. And I'll have them do the same. It's just wanted to provide that feedback point because it's a large investment and we should be able to.
From my understanding, those are under warranty for a period of time.
Oh, great.
So, yes,
Oh, good.
Yes, they came with some sort of
That's
warranty.
good to know.
Yes, and if I may also add to just address the concern that the momentum on recycling is going to stop now that the carts have been delivered. A large portion of the funding for those carts came from a SWIFR grant obtained by the Sustainability Department.
Right.
My understanding is that grant comes with the required reporting requirements on recycling compliance, and so at the very least during the term of that grant experience period, they will be monitoring recycling and reporting back to the EPA on the status of recycling. And so again, not to discredit any of the work that the director alluded to, but there is actually like a funder that is requiring this
Right.
monitoring to be reported to them.
Thank you for that, Crystal.
Mhm.
If neighbors report a broken new barrel, what's the 311? What's the-
311,
Okay.
but I would still appreciate.
Yeah,
if you forward
absolutely.
those to me.
It came through my
It's so
constituent
good.
service thing, so I'm happy to forward them.
Yeah, I've seen a couple on social media.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Is any other questions? I gotta use the restroom, so. I drink a lot of, I drink like 5 of these a day, so. Yeah. Julie, why are you looking at me like that?
No, I'm just looking at you.
Like, judge me over
I
here.
have to be.
I think last question, Counselor.
Yeah, not a question. Thank you. Appreciate it. Appreciate your work and appreciate all the answers tonight.
We're gonna continue this partnership going forward. Thank you, Director.
Thank you.
At this time, I will entertain a motion to continue items 1 through 5. So motion made by Counselor Peterson, second by Counselor Davis. All those in favor? Aye. Any nays? Any opposition? Any abstentions? The ayes have it. Motion to adjourn. Motion made by Counselor Davidson, seconded by
Oh, second, I'm sorry.
Counselor Peterson.
I was
All those
looking
in
at my
favor?
bag.
Aye. Any nays? Any abstentions? The ayes have it. Motion, this meeting is adjourned. More.
Chief,
That's why I'm looking.